Part 25. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 249. Chapter 243 Heavy Rain. Leon didn't even catch his breath, he quickly checked his gun and chased after him. Google searched Can. The village chief was too strong, he wanted to help Ada, and the two of them solved the troublesome guy together. But when he walked out of the villa, Ada and the village chief were nowhere to be seen, and the rain washed away their traces. Seeing this, Leon had no choice but to leave, and continued to head to the village square while the rain was not too heavy. Luo Guang, Ashley, and Xiaobai, 2 people and 1 wolf, were hiding from the increasingly heavy rain in the meeting house next to the square. Luo Guang and Xiaobai were not afraid of getting wet in the rain because of their physical conditions, but Ashley was not. In order to prevent Ashley from catching a cold due to the rain, Luo Guang could only take her to the village meeting house to rest and wait for the rain to stop. A cold is not a serious illness, Luo Guang is just worried that Ashley's ability to move will decrease due to illness, so he will have to continue the mission with a burden. While thinking, Luo Guang added a handful of wood to the fireplace in the meeting place. There were no electric heaters in the village, so many rooms had fireplaces as a way to keep warm. Naturally, as a gathering place for villagers, there was also a fireplace here. Okay, you guys take a break now. Wei Ang was indeed tired, and put the walkie-talkie aside after saying that. In this case, he will take a road to hell, and the journey is tense, and you didn't know about the biohazard outside until you came. Wyan told Yan Linyan his speculation. If the other party said it halfway, the scene would be bad. Ada, I doubt the communication confidentiality function of the walkie-talkie. Ada seemed to be persuading Ashley not to mess around, but actually wanted Ashley to move forward despite the difficulties, or face the difficulties. That being said, Wyan agreed with Yan Linyan's speculation, and ended the memories before meeting Yan Linyan, and thought of one thing. The thing Ada told Wyan to talk about before the meeting was that Ashley was infected with parasites. Unless Ambry suppressed the adult parasite throughout the whole process. Ashley's determination was very hesitant. Your father worked so hard to climb to the current position of the lighthouse country. Can you destroy your father's hard work because of you? You mean this, he knows about the Raccoon City incident, right? Wyan told Yan Lin about Sadler and the allies, but did not mention my dream. Ashley paused for a moment before realizing that Ada was talking about what she wanted to know. Because Ashley and she were in the same room, Ada asked Wyan if he had seen Luo Guang. I need to know Ashley's determination about that matter. As soon as Wyan blocked the door on the 1st floor and sat down on the 7th floor, he received Ada's communication code. Yan Lin's words were a comfort. Compared with viruses, visible parasites are less disgusting. At least Ashley didn't feel a little nauseous before hearing Yan Lin's words. Yes, you need to know the truth now, and he didn't say that he would tell you before meeting up with Wyan. A few years ago, Sira resigned from Hanigala Company and disappeared completely afterwards, making it difficult to investigate. That's why Wyan told Ada that he had something going on. Wyan and you can talk about it together before we meet up, so that we don't have to talk about it again. Yan Lin comforted Ashley, who was in a high mood, and said, don't worry, the technology of the lighthouse country is so advanced that there will be no way. I continued to read it to Yan Lin. But did Wyan tell Ada about the content of that part that was inferred without evidence, so as not to mislead Ada? Ashley understood it all at once, just like the AI in the game who knew how to think. The front of the document also stated that the information was obtained by the lighthouse country before the Raccoon City incident, before the investigation of the deterioration of the flag staff of Yan Lin Yanla Company. Anyway, the enemy can also locate Ashley through the parasite. It's just that the parasite in Ashley's body has just hatched, so the positioning perception will fail from time to time. She participated in the development of several common over-the-counter drugs, but some of them were killed before they were taken off the market. Stop further research and development. According to the coordinates provided by Ada, Yan found that the distance between him and Ada was not very close, and Yanlin was also with Ashley, so I had to rush to the front for such a short distance. And the name Allies is very familiar to me, and I have never seen it outside the game of Resident Evil 4. Yan muttered to himself, looking at the pouring rain in the window. So it is unclear whether there is a way to remove the parasites, and you now even know the location of the Parasite Research Institute. Although I can see Ashley's situation, Dabai is not here, so if anything happens, I can go there to support him. Yes, you can go back just like that. Ashley suppressed her fear and turned to look at Ada. You can go back to your father with the parasite. Ada did not turn her head, maintained her original posture, and replied, the person who kidnapped him is a special person. Ashley, who moved her hands slowly under her arms, rubbing the cold to keep warm, heard Yanlin's words, and saw Ada taking off her clothes, and quickly covered her eyes with her hands and said, what do you want to do? Now the storm has covered the entire area, and satellite monitoring is no longer useful. We can only confirm the approximate location of each person based on the positioning devices of several people. Got it, you should rest for a while. You see he is tired too. Because he had only met those two parties outside, Yanlin was not able to make a judgment. Ashley, with some hope, hoped to get a negative answer from Yanlin. By the way, there is something more important that you can talk about before you meet up, so that it is convenient to talk outside through the intercom. Ashley sat next to the fireplace and sneezed loudly. Yanlin knew what Ashley was shy about. I didn't expect that Ashley was a person who often blushed, and I also knew what the young people were thinking about now. Wait, you don't have anything to say? Ashley didn't answer immediately, and after a long time, she said again, help you. Bad Ada didn't insist or persuade that time, and directly agreed to Ashley's words. Yes, Ada scolded Dabai, because Dabai hated rainy days, and it was comfortable to be wet all over. Does he mean zombies? Biohazard? Did you get a virus implanted in your body? I walked out of the square and surrounded a house. After confirming that there was only one living person outside the room, I knew that I would be touched by the enemy like in the villa. Speaking of being soaked, Ada looked at Ashley who was shivering and said, take off the other wet clothes, or he will catch a cold. Now Ada hasn't found the president's man yet, you can't evacuate directly later. Leave the task of disinfection to the support troops, but, will we really choose to destroy the parasites? As for Yanlin, we also know how Ada will deal with it. Dabai, who was shaking off the rain on his body, walked over on the other side of the room. He didn't look a bit depressed and lay down next to the fireplace. On the other side, Yanlin in the meeting hall was resting with his eyes closed, and suddenly heard Ashley calling him. And that new type of parasites would retreat and cover under the original parasites. No, but the infectiousness is not as weak as the virus. Ada did not hide that point. When Yan was alone or free, this joy would emerge and torture me. Yan did not see Sadler outside the factory, so he thought Sadler also left through the secret passage. As long as the parasites are regressed and covered after the late stage of infection, otherwise the parasites that have not yet fully developed in the body will choose to die with the host. Ada's backpack is waterproof, so I twisted the backpack to where I saw Ashley, took out the intercom from outside, pressed the talk button again, and tried to contact Yan. Bad, what did the eagle's nest say? No instructions. Because of the weather problem, the helicopter is coming now. We have to wait until the storm passes before we can reconfirm the evacuation point and send a helicopter. Ada. You are worried about Dabai, right? Ashley said to Dabai. The distance between the two was not far, so Ashley heard what Yanlin, who was walking with her, said loudly. The meeting hall returned to a state of silence, with only the sound of burning wood. Then Wyan took out the machine used to communicate with Yan Linyan, checked the information collected by Eagle Nest about Sadler Sarah, and repeated it to Yan Linyan. As for the wet clothes outside, it didn't affect Ada, because I was still wearing a protective suit made of hardened armor inside, which was waterproof. But this is a game. Wyan will have unlimited physical strength. Ada felt a little tired from Wyan's tone, so she suggested, "Put the clothes outside to dry, and then go to the door to watch. Dabai is a boy, he doesn't need to worry." Wyan received the information for a while, and I was just wondering if there was any new discovery from it, or to infer the role of Sadler in the incident. It was very convenient to act in a rainy day, and these villagers were also reluctant to set traps under the road, so Wyan chose to continue on his way. That parasite is not contagious. Yan Linyan also took off his jacket and put it next to the fireplace to dry. Wyan saw that Sadler was from Hannigan Company, and he couldn't help but recall the events in Raccoon City, and a wave of anger emerged from his heart. Isn't it possible that Sadler, who has a work experience in Hannigan Company, was once a researcher of the dark cult? Ashley, who was only wearing a lace bra, sat under a chair by the fireplace, curled up, hugged her legs, and asked, "Then he said that he would tell you the reason before the danger? Why did this sound appear in your head? Can you think if this is an illusion? This new type of Plaka parasite will develop in the host's body, and then use the host as a breeding ground. Help you, Ada." Yan Lin heard that Wyan got a new weapon and a lot of bullets, which made him envious. "How can I find these weapons?" Before, he couldn't discharge larvae under the control of the leader of Ambri and infect the people around him. Ada finally received a response from Wyan, and breathed a sigh of relief, saying, "Eagle hasn't received it yet." Ashley glanced at Ada's back, her eyes flickering, and she made up her mind in the end. Ashley put her hands under her face flushed, and secretly looked at Ada through the gaps between her fingers. It was indeed the same as Ada said, "I don't have a white combat uniform outside." "Number 7, you have something to do over there." "Okay." Yan Lin hung up his clothes and walked to the other side. Wyan leaned back in the chair and relaxed his body. Finally, he couldn't rest for a while. The parasite in Ashley's body is still a special version, but the one in Ambri's hand is a special one. What can kidnap you if it is a special person? This chapter is not over yet, please click the next page to continue reading. Ashley, who was frightened, immediately checked her body and checked whether she felt uncomfortable, whether her skin felt itchy, and whether she had fever and other symptoms. Her full name is Sadler Sarah Navarro, 28 years old. She first appeared in the student list of an elementary school, but no written records were found after elementary school, including birth certificates. Dry your clothes, you don't have a combat uniform outside? Dabai, who was named, raised his head and looked at Ashley without any doubt. He understood what Yan Lin and the others were worried about. Before graduation, I was hired as a researcher at Hanigala Company, and my research ability was favored and recognized by my peers. The battle in the church made Yan Lin feel that he could not ask Dabai to do some big tasks, such as early warning. Ashley's 60D white stockings were soaked in water, revealing their whiteness. What's wrong? Although Ada closed her eyes to rest, I still didn't pay attention to the situation around me, so I knew if there were any enemies around. A rustling sound came from in front of me. It was Ashley taking off her wet clothes. Then Ashley also imitated Yan Lin and wrung out the water from her clothes with her hands. Got it, but the rain is too light now, so you are taking shelter outside a house surrounded by the square. Luo Guang had blocked the doors on both sides of the meeting hall with debris, and the windows were the same, leaving only the ventilation holes. It's very unlikely. But there is still a possibility that the Sadler and the so-called allies are in the same group. It's impossible. Sadler is like these guys. They are very familiar with the secret passages in that area. Speaking of traveling together, Yan Linyan felt that the other party was trustworthy. Yan Linyan also added his own comments, thinking that there was no problem with these over-the-counter drugs, and Sadler Sarah also unconsciously erased his traces. Yan Lin should contact him after finding the president's man, and he knew about that, which means that Yan missed Ada's subsequent contact during his coma. When the fireplace is lit, it will produce thick smoke, which will drift away from the room from the chimney. However, because the rain has become much heavier now, it can play a certain role in shielding the thick smoke, so Luo Guang will use it with confidence. Ashley, who was not a little worried, said, "Can this help you check your front and back? See if there is any problem. The clothes under the body are wet and stick to the skin, which does make people feel comfortable." Yes, he was implanted with a virus, not a parasite. Yan Lin took off his clothes and wrung them as hard as possible to slow down the drying speed of the clothes. Meow, there is something wrong with the body, it hurts. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong Miao. Chapter 250. Chapter 244 The Wolf Pack. "I'm dressed," Ashley said, and Luo Guang turned around. While waiting for the rain to stop, Ashley put on her clothes after making sure her lining and clothes were dry, and asked Luo Guang to come over to keep warm. Luo Guang did not refuse this, because being too restrained would make the other party feel embarrassed. After that, the two chatted about nothing, and Luo Guang also took some food and water from his backpack to satisfy Ashley's hunger and thirst. The rain lasted for nearly 2 hours, and when the sky cleared, the sun was about to set. After the two were ready, Luo Guang contacted Leon and asked him to come and meet him. Leon nodded in agreement, because Luo Guang was with Ashley and his location was also recognizable, so it was the best choice for him to go over and meet. Therefore, Luo Guang cleared the obstacles of the door leading to the square in advance and welcomed Leon in. The two big boys bumped their fists, which was also a greeting. "Hello, I'm Leon." Leon greeted Ashley. Ashley shook hands with Leon gently and replied, "I heard Luo Guang mention your name. Thank you for coming to save me." As for Dabai, it is now being held in Ashley's arms with a clear conscience. Dabai knows what parasites are, and also knows that its mother is not the original one, but I understand one thing, this is not a thing growing on its mother's back, but a bad thing. Yan suspected Dukun, so he reported the situation to Eagle's Nest first, but I still had to ask the doubts in my heart. So Dukun asked Yan to report the matter and delay the completion of the task of rescuing Ashley, which was very consistent with Sadler's needs. Eagle's Nest also responded to Yan's question at that time, rejecting Yan's request that we find a way to solve the parasite first. Awoo, the Wolf King was scared that time and let the other wolves go first. Ashley understood after hearing what Ada said. In addition, those wolves were in the deep mountains and old forests, so it would be too difficult to catch them alive, so the villagers chose to beat them half to death first. Later, Dukun issued a task to let people go to the Little Western Research Institute to capture Luo Guang, but the fact that the whole army was wiped out did not make the Sadler family feel satisfied with my behavior. It is difficult to become the target of the last round of competition for the leader of the X organization in my family. Yan continued, "Not yet, you see, there seems to be no electricity in this castle. Ashley has no knowledge of observation, so you took the initiative to take the position of watching the wind, responsible for keeping an eye on Yan's back to ensure that no villagers broke into the room where the two were. Does the person who taught know that flash bombs can restrain parasites?" Ada thought to herself, closing her eyes and ears to block the effect of flash bombs. No. Yan then told Ada what he saw on the road leading to the lake in the manor. Two wolves that escaped the net rushed from both sides of Ada. Before Yan told Simmons about the matter in a text message, he said firmly, "Ada, he just said that he heard voices outside his head, is it because of parasites? Those wolves, or rather, the monsters that used to be wolves, saw Dukun and others and immediately bared their teeth and scattered to the right and left. But Dabai left the parasitic wolf lying on the ground, its former mother, and replied, "It's your mother." But even so, Wyan didn't see Dabai's change at this moment, because I had been focusing on the parasitic wolf on the left, but the parasitic wolf on the right. Dabai's cute big head became smaller in such a moment, as if Dabai's head had only returned to the size of an adult, and then he bit off the parasite on his mother's back. "You guys go outside first," Aiden nodded and said. "As long as they are not dead, parasites will care too much about the quality of the host. After all, when they are finished parasitizing, they can't save the host with their weak recovery ability." "That's not much different from the medieval times," Ada replied. As for Dabai, it broke free from Ashley's embrace, ran out of the room and rushed towards Ada. Just as Ada was thinking about how to refute her opinion, she heard Wyan say, "It's too much to take a boat. If you are blocked by someone on the shore, you will have a place to escape under the boat." Tucan is an electric fish, so he is naturally afraid of water-attributed fish, but Wyan and Ashley are good at it. Wyan saw that and had to agree with Ada's guess. Ada looked at Wyan, and the two said almost at the same time, "Castle." "Ah, let Tucan take it." Wyan handed the Remington M870 shotgun and these 12-gauge shotgun shells to Ada. "In fact, you also encountered the situation of voices appearing in your mind. Before that, you also encountered a villager who was as short as a tyrant. I said that you got the holy gift." "It's a dog." Ada put one hand on the shoulder of Wyan and said doubtfully. "Because the intelligence and knowledge of wolves are unlimited, they can't understand very few things, so Hannigan can only issue a relatively vague instruction. For this reason, the other villagers must be evacuated away from the way the wolves come to avoid accidental injuries." "Wrong." The strong desire made Dabai activate the stable virus in his body, and the virus also responded to Dabai's wish. Bang, another shot came and hit the enemy on Ada's left. For Du Kunke, who was looking for Luo Guang, Ashley's priority was not low. Du Kun told Wei Ang about his conversation with Ashley, so whether to evacuate immediately, you should contact Eagle Nest first. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. That Xiao Bai Luo Guang introduced Xiao Bai to Leon, asking him to take care of Xiao Bai when he has spare energy. Bang, 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 Ada used a pistol to slowly kill the enemies who rushed over one by one, but there were too few enemies that time, and they gathered together. When Ada saw the situation, her first reaction was to look back at the place where the gunshots came from, trying to confirm that Wei Ang didn't see that scene. Du Kun was stunned, and then he urged Dabai to disobey the order and kicked the parasitic Wolf King away, then picked up the shotgun on his back and fired 8 shots at the bone armor of the parasite on the Wolf King's back. While Ada shot and killed the parasitic wolf, she ordered Dabai, "Dabai, leave there quickly." Ada did not find the trace of Luo Guang, but found Ashley first. That was a bad thing for Wyan, but it was not a good thing for Sadler, who sent Ada for Luo Guang. "Ashley, have you ever experienced any combat training, so Ashley can only rely on Ada and the others now, and you do what you can. I am sure Ashley has been rescued, so Sadler has no reason to ask for the blockade of that area and send out the family personnel to carry out the mission. The reason they came there was to solve the enemies with parasites in their bodies, and at the same time surround and control the enemies who have not been parasitized by parasites." After solving all the enemies, Ada looked at Dabai and saw that Dabai's mother licked Dabai's fur, and the light in her eyes came up. Then Ada threw the shotgun in front of her, put it on her back, rushed towards the Wolf King, avoided the tentacles, and Du Kun pushed a flash bomb with the safety removed out of the parasite. "Castle," Ashley knew where this place was, tilted her head and asked. Du Kun's guess was only based on the enemy's action response, and there was no solid evidence. "Yes, but you don't have an idea." Dukun is just confirming the situation and communicating about the rescue helicopter. Wyan told Ada about the evacuation, and then asked Ada what to mention before the reunion. Wyan first explained some basic information about the Salazar family, and then said, the Dark Church must want to promote its doctrine in that area, and this requires the support of local nobles. Being suppressed by Ada's hand, all the parasitic wolves that survived the wolf pack stopped, and did not continue to gather to surround or chase Wyan and other guys who were moving away. And the wolf on the right was directly knocked away by the white comet Dabai. Didn't see the villagers in the square? The ground was muddy before the rain, and it felt soft like dog shit. Where did the information come from? To be more specific, it was not Wyan who found that the wolves were chasing them, so he took Ashley to the 7th floor of a house, opened one of the windows, set up the Springfield rifle in his hand, and began to cover Dukun. Ashley, who was walking in the middle, also wanted to fall and get covered in mud, while Wyan, who was walking in front, nodded, holding a pistol, and alerting the surroundings. Humble villagers, holy gift. Bad. Be careful, the ground is slippery, Ada said to the two people in front of her. Simmons is a front-line support and has the right to make decisions, and the person who immediately rejected Ada's plan was Sadler. The 8 people and 1 wolf left the meeting house and came to the village square. After discussing the bad things, the 8 people and 1 wolf set off. Does Aiden know the location of this research institute? Yes. Now Ada turned from the back forward to the front, and Wyan became the defender, and finally led Ashley and Dabai to break through. Ada and Dabai both have parasites in their bodies, and Hannigan's order is not aimed at us now. But that is a big deal. The Wolf King stood up again, and the tentacles in front of it also grew back. So its goal was very clear at the beginning, to help its mother bite off the parasites on her back. Do you think that in the current situation, either find Lewis or find the Parasite Research Institute? Wyan started. Ashley hugged Ziobai and said, it's a cute puppy. Those villagers are so bad that they want to kill it? Because as long as the little fish directly overturned the big boat that Wyan was sitting on, or dragged it to the lake, Wyan who fell into the water would have to let the little fish slaughter him, and there would be no chance for Wyan to throw a harpoon. No electric light. Ashley didn't understand that it had nothing to do with the electric light, and looked at Ada with a puzzled look. A worm-like parasite grew under the backs of those wolves, and the parasite under the Wolf King's back even lost a few tentacles with bone blades. As for Wyan and Ashley, they had no time to take care of a big dog, so they could only let Dabai run away. Ada didn't act pretentiously, and directly took the weapons and bullets, sorted them out and put them under her body. Later, Ashley was confused because she heard that there were no parasites in her body. She didn't ask Ada why she knew, but now she heard Ada's speculation and felt that it seemed unreasonable. What are you going to do now? Ashley asked Ada and Wyan. The sequelae left behind were not that the parasites were hidden in the wolf's body, but that they were completely exposed from the beginning. These villagers suddenly mistakenly knew that Ashley had not escaped, and then besieged you. We did not use small speakers, and we did not use mobile phones or other communications. So before hearing Ashley's words, you were not so just a guess. Although other wolves are also afraid of the flash bomb Ada just took out, the Wolf King's order is absolute. Because it saw that the wolf attacking Ada from the right was not its mother. It seems that you haven't found it yet, Ada secretly thought, focusing on the enemy again. The parasite on the Wolf King's back seemed to be missing a layer of bone structure, blocking the weak light, but these tentacles were not so lucky, they shrank and then turned into ashes. With that said, Ada took out the dark scripture. When I looked through it, I didn't see any similar symptoms. Aiden noticed Ashley's gaze and explained, research equipment requires a small amount of power. Puppy, Leon looked at Ziobai's face and the tail that didn't swing very much. The wolves pounced on Ada and filled the air with flash bombs. In an instant, not half of the parasites on the backs of the parasitic wolves were wiped out. However, the Wolf King was not wiped out and instead directly hit due under the chest of the crowd. Adana unintentionally brushed up Sadler's bad impression again. Those who receive the holy gift will be able to listen to the teachings of the leader. Ada pointed out the sentence. Faced with the wolves surrounded by parasites exposed, Dukun directly used flash bombs. It's wrong, so either the Salazar family is driven to power by the dark cult and the villagers, or both sides are colluding, but no matter which case, this castle will be a wrong stronghold. The distance to the northeastern corner of the village and then to the farm is only 70 meters, but at that distance, Ada and we were blocked by a wolf. Bimax recognized at a glance that the leading wolf was not the king of the pack I would be with in the future. Dukun was not surprised at all. He immediately opened his eyes, quickly grabbed the Wolf King's protruding mouth, turned 360 degrees, accelerated, and threw it back. There was low light and loud noise again, but before Ada could move away from the killed Wolf King, she took out her pistol again to kill the remaining parasitic wolves. In that case, are you going to this fish farm to find a boat? Ada regretted it as soon as she finished saying that. I forgot for a moment that there was no giant salamander monster outside the lake there. Fortunately for Ada, we stayed at the meeting place, but Hannigan was really bad and sent out the wolves directly. Bad. And not even a little bit. What Ashley heard reflected the subsequent actions of these villagers. Don't you have any other way to do this? The reason why Dukun did not retreat while standing was not because Dabai could tell him and what he and Yan were going to do through his sensory perception ability. The wolves were not directly slaughtered, but became the beast troops of the dark religion. Wei Ang's Springfield rifle did not have a scope, and he did not close the other eye when aiming, so my field of vision was not limited to the scope of the scope. It's not obvious yet what kind of gift the cult that worships parasites will use as a holy gift, right? When Wei Ang saw this, he understood that both Ada and himself were right. Bimax gave him a wolf. He thought it was to make Ashley not be afraid, so he lied that Bimax was a dog. Ada took over the words and said, "You have too much information about Lewis, and you are simply vague about where I will go, so it may be worse for you to find this Parasite Research Institute." Xiaobai immediately put on a flattering look and waggled his tail. Wei Ang, cover Ashley's departure before you stop. Ada once again asked Wei Ang to go first. Wei Ang, I wanted to just leave Ada alone and finish off like this. Ada turned to look at the sign under the shrine in the assembly hall. We followed Ada's line of sight and saw that this was the emblem of the dark cult. Outside of the Resident Evil 4 game, the fact that monsters can be solved by Wei Ang is really a huge aura of the protagonist. Bang! A gunshot sounded louder than Ada's pistol. The parasite on the back of the parasitic wolf on the right was penetrated by a .30-06 rifle bullet and died on the way to the charge. Meow, I spent the whole Sunday sleeping and typing, so sleepy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 251. Chapter 245 Avengers Alliance. Luo Guang walked over and touched Xiao Bai's head. Xiaobai whined and asked Luo Guang to save his mother. However, Luo Guang shook his head and replied, "She was parasitized by parasites, so there is nothing I can do." But Xiaobai didn't believe it and bit Luo Guang's hand directly, trying to make Luo Guang bleed and then revive his mother. Xiaobai couldn't bite through Luo Guang's hardened armor. Luo Guang sighed and demonstrated directly to Xiaobai, dropping a drop of blood into his mother's mouth. Xiaobai, who was doomed to be disappointed, saw that his mother had no reaction at all, and cried and threw herself into Luo Guang's arms. Luo Guang did not pursue the matter of Xiaobai, the white-eyed wolf biting him. He looked at the female wolf lying on the ground, sighed, and couldn't help but recall some things from the past. Luo Guang, "Are you okay?" Leon brought Ashley over to meet Luo Guang. Luo Guang hugged Xiaobai and turned around and said, "It's okay, let's keep going." Just when a few people were about to continue setting off, a sound of applause suddenly sounded from one side. Leon immediately raised his gun and aimed at the place where the applause appeared. "I thought you would just throw a note to you and leave like before," Wei Ang said. "Is that his stronghold outside?" Wei Ang was worried that he had accidentally set up someone else's stronghold and shot someone else's bartender to death. Those things would please the guy behind him and lead to a falling out between the two parties. His fight in the church was wrong. "Your people originally planned to help them escape from the church, but I didn't expect that he actually killed these villagers directly. Haha, when you said it, they only had two choices, doubt or suspicion. As for the evidence, how did he know whether the evidence you provided was true or false?" Diego shook his head. "I felt that Wei Ang said nonsense." Ashley secretly looked at Luo Guang and showed his excited expression for the first time. She couldn't help but believe that her charm had increased because of taking a bath in those days. Luo Guang's reaction made Diego feel less relaxed and said, "Does he know about your Avengers?" Therefore, Xiang Li's statement was correct, so Wei Ang had no objection and asked Ashley to follow him. "Where is the place where the dark cult studies parasites?" Wei Ang wanted to communicate with his superiors first and explain the situation there, but Luo Guang stopped him and said directly, "You guys can cooperate. Generally speaking, Xiang Li can't suggest that we haven't completed the rescue mission yet and it is necessary to fight with the dark cult as a bargaining chip, but I want to keep Ashley safe." "Does this devil son mean a parasite?" Wei Ang continued to ask. "Yes, since he saw the gun at first glance, he shouldn't take it." Diego shook his head and said, "He used that weapon badly. By the way, the key was found by Diego under the villager I killed, so Wyan didn't find the key. As for Dabai, he was leaning in the corner of the room, thinking about life. The other party seems to know a lot of things, and it is very unlikely that he is a local. Except for those in the guns and outside the bar and kitchen, there were no two people wearing the same robes, but the color of the robes under our bodies was pure white." "That gun is enough," Xiang Li said, taking the .357 Magnum bullet and the corresponding holster handed over by the man in white robe on the other side. "Now when I hear Luo Guang mention that comic, I can't help but feel nostalgic." Luo Guang and the other two looked at each other. Before Luo Guang said something loudly in Wei Ang's ear, he took steps forward and followed him. "That's enough. The dark sect has a lot of people, but there are only two of you," Luo Guang bargained. Wei Ang and Luo Guang met before, and Diego received information that Luo Guang was very weak in combat and could not defeat 100 people. Wei Ang also read this comic later and nodded. "It's been a long time since I read comics before the Raccoon City incident, and it's been a long time since I stopped engaging in entertainment activities." In reality, when Wei Ang took off the handcuffs and left the room outside the factory, the first villager he saw who was shot to death with a kitchen knife was killed by Diego behind his eyes. Wei Ang was carrying a Springfield M1903 rifle at this time. If he had to retreat into the castle to fight, the rifle would be so useless. Diego nodded and left the kitchen. "First of all, the barrel of the butterfly is very similar to the inner shape of the Schofield No. 3 revolver, and the rest of the barrel is very similar to the Colt M1860 Army revolver. Some modifications were made before the gun frame could not fit. Comes with barrel top detent. Just looking around, I didn't find anything useless. The bolt-action rifle is indeed a good medium and long-range weapon, and the action of pulling the bolt is also very handsome, but I still don't have one in Wei Ang. I wanted to get another bolt-action rifle." In Xiang Li's view, it is absolutely necessary for Diego's Avengers to contact him and others, because his goals are not the same as those of the Avengers. To be honest, those weapons are not that old. Wyan even saw some weapons from the First World War, such as the Chauza-Librol 1918 submachine gun. The seventh thing is not that the ally is an individual person, but a group or organization. Diego watched his allies complete their equipment, then waved his hand to pack up the other weapons and take them away first. Ha ha ha, the person behind him smiled knowingly and continued, "This is just because there are too few enemies, so you need to hurry up and leave. Is your gift all ready for him?" In fact, it must be because of the mission to rescue Ashley that Luo Guang and Wei Ang directly agreed to each other, because we would choose to let the biochemical crisis outside. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Dai Ge talked about the method of cooperation. It is not that those weapons were prepared many years ago, so the existence of the Avengers would be too short. Avengers, Luo Guang was stunned when he heard such a name. Dai Ge glanced at Luo Guang and replied, "You haven't asked us to move out all the weapons in the warehouse for them to choose. Although the models are very old, the power is enough, and the bullets are more than enough to kill the enemies in that place several times. Then I didn't go to Wei Ang, but came to the factory gate and threw the key to Wei Ang." Xiangli waved her hand and said, "Forget it, your mission is also suitable for telling others." Luo Guang didn't have the shotgun given by Wei Ang, so unlike Wei Ang, I needed some medium-range weapons. The other party's words revealed two things. The first was that when Luo Guang was fighting in the church, there were no people from the other side monitoring around. Although he was amazed, Luo Guang did not rush over to look at the gun. Luo Guang compared that place to a remote mountain, which made Dai Ge a little unhappy, and his tone became a little worse. "Is there no problem?" The white and purple robed man nodded and said, "They can't call you Dai Ge, you are the leader of the Avengers. In addition, Wei Ang did not choose to carry fewer guns and cannons. Before replenishing ammunition and some equipment, I looked at Luo Guang who was choosing weapons. While Luo Guang was teaching Ashley how to use the quick dagger, Wei Ang was observing the various weapons under the table. As for Ashley's identity, Dai Ge didn't care. "Are there only those weapons?" Xiangli asked. Then Dai Ge gave the weapons to Wei Ang as a gift. At the same time, when Wei Ang was clearing the enemies in the valley, I once again hid aside and retreated to observe. Luo Guang's face instantly became serious. While asking the other party, he was also thinking that if the other party was sure to give him those weapons, he would just rob them. That was a test of Waiyan's combat power by Diego. But there won't be any clues they need outside the castle. Okay, Luo Guang chose that weapon not because its shape was strange, but because it looked like the Magnum gun in the game of Resident Evil 4. A man came out wearing a black and purple hooded robe, with a black cloth covering his face, revealing only a pair of golden eyes. "Tell me about his purpose," Alliance Luo Guang said. "Can't you tell me now?" Although Diego said that we don't have people who are proficient in fighting, that means we don't have combat power, so Luo Guang wants to bring Ashley, the VIP figure, to the surface. Has he been staying in that remote mountain all the time? But in addition to the weapons, Waiyan also needs a backpack, so a 7th War Soldier backpack made in Spain was taken by Waiyan, and then the things outside his simple backpack were transferred to it. Code. "They are merchants and you are hunters," Xiangli said. Diego nodded, looked at Waiyan and Ashley, and confirmed whether the two agreed, and said, "Okay, they will pick the weapons and equipment first, and you have to pack up and leave. Nian has asked us about the Dark Church, and he protects Ashley." "You are wrong." Waiyan did not doubt the other party's words. "What did the Dark Church do to them? How do you know if they were sent by the Dark Church?" Several people turned right and left and came to the village bar, which was not the place where Waiyan got the shotgun later. "Pack up and leave," his words sounded like those of a wandering merchant, Luo Guang said. "So even if Diego and us contacted ourselves, it would not have any effect, but would expose our own existence." "Wow, no woman can resist the dazzling array of firearms," Luo Guang couldn't help but exclaimed. The submachine gun that was sold out in 1990 is not compact and heavy. It is slightly smaller than a pistol and weighs only 1.3 kilograms. It has good firepower and is difficult to control. It is more suitable for close-range combat in the castle. Luo Guang heard what Dai Ji said, took the break-type revolver, looked at Dai Ji, and asked, "Is it usable?" Putting aside these older weapons, Wei Ang continued to search and finally found a more modern weapon for me, the TMP submachine gun. Your allies. I stayed and said to Luo Guang, the last supply point is after retreating into the castle. You will find them then. Hearing that, Xiangli and Wei Ang were also polite and started to choose. The other party looked at Luo Guang, and the smile in front of the white cloth became younger. Leon guessed when he saw the color of the other party's robe. The other party did not answer Xiangli's question, "That is a bad place to talk, please follow you." After that, Ashley, who had been silent and disobeyed Xiangli and Leon's instructions, raised her hand and said, "You understand their motives. That is a way for both of you to understand each other and increase trust." At that time, Hannigan saw a man in black and purple clothes outside the factory through the satellite, so the other party's words more verified Leon's thoughts. Because only Xiang Lixiang escaped from the room, Diego thought that only Louis was imprisoned there, so I led Louis out of the factory before I dealt with the villager who came to check the situation. The tableware outside had not been swept aside, and the long table was full of various guns and ammunition. After sorting out his emotions, Diego said, "The target of your revenge is the dark cult, take back everything that belongs to you." Ashley had not practiced with firearms, and she also shouted that she would take a weapon for self-defense when she saw the weapon, but she thought that Luo Guang had found a weapon for you first. And you are against the dark cult, so they came to you and called themselves allies. Xiangli understood. They brought you here to chat, right? Let's get on with business. Wyan was silent for a while and looked at Luo Guang. Who are you? Diego replied, no matter how few the villagers are, they are all special people. The son of the devil makes the villagers more durable, but their fighting skills have not been improved. Therefore, with their strength, as long as you Avengers can provide them with enough weapons and ammunition, they can't easily defeat us. It's in that area. In addition, that area is not under the control of the Dark Church. We can be safe and sound all the time. Naturally, we don't have a set of concealment methods. Diego learned about Wyan from Xiang Lixiang and turned back again. Probably in the castle, Diego continued, this leader will basically come to a rural place like a village, usually before the rain, and the ground is full of mud. You don't have guns or cannons, but you have a person who is proficient in fighting, so you provide them with weapons and support, and then they go to deal with the Dark Church. The two sides reached an agreement, and Diego was relieved. You didn't charge them money. Choose one of the bad guys, those are all collectibles. Why is the broken-winged butterfly there? Diego looked at the other two white-robed men, and suddenly remembered that the order I issued did not exclude that weapon. Of course, the broken-winged butterfly has not been improved by me, and it is not a modified suture gun at all, but that does not destroy its beauty at all. Diego's words made Luo Guang and the other eight pale. But before I heard the movement outside the factory, I hid in a dark corner and finally saw the fighting power outside. In that case, Luo Guang planned to choose a weapon with less power, and soon found a revolver. Ashley, he's holding it for self-defense. Luo Guang handed the two things to Ashley, who was standing aside. It's necessary. Diego wanted to talk about his own things, and the other white-robed people didn't interrupt and remained silent. The Avengers is the name of an organization in a hero comic, Luo Guang said. Who are they? What's their purpose? Luo Guang asked directly. You said from the beginning that you are their allies. The gifts from the factory later were not your pretense. No matter what their real purpose is, as long as they can make the Dark Church suffer, you will provide them with support. It's temporary, and they made a little trouble outside, so you didn't have a chance to take advantage of it. The other party took Luo Guang and us to the front of the bar, where the kitchen was. Those words were a ray of hope, because Diego's words sometimes hinted at Luo Guang and others that if we wanted to solve the problem of parasites, we must work with us to deal with the Dark Church and attack the castle. Thank you. Ashley tied the belt around her waist, put on the field dagger, and then covered it with a cover. If these villagers catch him, he will use the dagger to stab the enemy. Luo Guang also asked Ashley to accurately stab the enemy's parasites, but I still taught Ashley how to use the dagger. Luo Guang's first choice was not a shotgun or a submachine gun, but a leather belt and a field dagger with a leather sheath. Although it is old, it looks well maintained and the bullets are fine. Where is the leader of the dark cult now? Wyan asked. So Diego decided to meet with Luo Guang formally and then form an alliance. Diego scared himself, and he didn't have any choice at this time. But this name was also chosen by himself according to his own situation, so it doesn't matter. Why does Broken Wing Butterfly use .45 Magnum bullets in the game? I checked and it seems that there is no Magnum of this caliber. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 252. Chapter 246. Goodbye Louis. Let's go. Luo Guang shouted to Xiaobai. Xiaobai followed with his head down. Ashley asked curiously, what's wrong with Xiaobai? Did Xiaobai worry about you before and ran to find you, and then you scolded it? No, Luo Guang didn't even turn his head back, and then used his sensing ability to tell Xiaobai, the parasite attached to your mother's back, and now we are going to deal with the Church of Light that developed the parasite. Do you want to cry and hide in the woman's arms or avenge your mother yourself and destroy the Church of Light with us? Xiaobai didn't answer, but the crying had stopped, and finally answered Luo Guang, it chose to avenge its mother. Luo Guang finally made Xiaobai stop crying, and at the same time he was thinking about Xiaobai's suddenly enlarged wolf head. Could it be Xiaobai's special skill? While thinking, Luo Guang and Leon switched positions, let Leon lead the way, passed through the farm, and found the path leading to the lake. The path was winding and it took Luo Guang and his companions a long time to cross it. At this time, it was completely dark. Wyan succeeded in the sneak attack, but he did not continue. Instead, he replaced the TMP submachine gun and prepared to deal with the approaching villagers. The Tauren had the strongest firepower, so I was responsible for the side windows where there were relatively more enemies. Fang Zhening's bones must have been weakened by parasites, so Wyan's gun penetrated his arm and exploded the Tauren. Wyan used one hand to push the Tauren to the wall and said, "It's bad. I've introduced you. Now I'll tell you who he is and what he's doing there." Mauser asked as usual, "Are they all in trouble?" Ashley. "Doesn't it mean that you will become like these villagers?" Ashley's eyes were not calm. Although Mauser had not prepared you psychologically, you still felt flustered when you heard the Tauren say that. Madfuck Ashley was following him, so Mauser cursed in his heart. "Help," the Minotaur whispered, leaving the window I was defending. But the village chief had not sent anyone to cut off the road ahead in order to deal with the 7 running rats. So when Mauser opened the door and was about to leave, he saw 2 villagers at the other end of the wooden bridge cut the wooden bridge. "What are you, Senorita? Your name is Ashley." Seeing that the explosive insect villagers had completed their mission, Mauser shot the parasite under the body, but just like during the day, the parasite that was shot did not rest because of this, and it was still vigorously controlling the villagers' bodies, stepping forward and approaching Mauser. "Your name is Mauser." "He is bad," Fang Zhening. Mauser followed. "Louis," Leon said in surprise. Leon was the first person to shoot, raising the Springfield rifle in his hand, and not a single shot at Louis, who stood out from the crowd. Ashley nodded, and the Minotaur said, coughing, vomiting blood, "Those symptoms are all because of Perka." It was just Ashley, and Wyan also clenched his fists with a worried look, as if to confirm that his body was still under his control. The other person also answered yes to that question. He cheated you. Is this the name of the parasite? Mauser interrupted. Retreat. Mauser planned to go to the other side of the wooden bridge when he arrived, and then use the narrow terrain advantage to annihilate the opponent. In fact, Mauser and Wyan saw that these villagers' eyes turned red and they didn't think that the situation had not changed, but we knew the situation, so we could only adapt to the situation. Mauser and Wyan immediately went over to check the situation, and the Minotaur also came over, while Dabai looked at Ashley with a worried look, and it smelled the smell of parasites from Ashley's palm. In this case, I took out the broken wing butterfly directly, aiming at Fang Zhening's knee and not a shot, which finally stopped Lewis. Although the Minotaur used they, Fang Zhe saw the Minotaur secretly looking at Ashley and shaking his flowing hair. Why so little? Time is waiting for people. It seems that there is no danger yet, but everyone still did not relax their vigilance. They panted and took advantage of the danger to recover their strength. The Minotaur's face returned to the previous state, and he said casually, "You have no way to help them, but the premise is that they will suspect you. The tunnel is not far from the wooden house, so the 7 people and 1 dog can still relax their vigilance." Mauser still walked in front, past the wooden gate, and immediately put Ashley on it, and then used the broken wing butterfly to break the hinges, so that the door fell directly, blocking the villagers. After recharging a shotgun shell and retreating, Mauser harvested the enemy again with a pistol. His question is wrong, but now is the time to talk about those things. The Minotaur pointed to the window on the other side with his head. Although Mauser retreated to the ground passage, he did not lose his sense of direction. The ground passage went straight through the enemy who was retreating from the wooden house and walked towards us. He is unlucky. He is just in the early stage of retreat, and that stage cannot be eliminated by Rico's operation. The Minotaur opened his collar and said to the other 8 of us, and that operation only requires a little knowledge and appropriate equipment. While speaking, the Minotaur continued to move forward. The wooden house has 8 floors, and the lowest floor is an attic. Like the Minotaur, Fang Zhe and Wyan still didn't have much tacit understanding, so I immediately opened fire to suppress the enemies on Wyan's side, allowing Wyan to take the opportunity to throw the flash bomb under me. Then I immediately cooperated with the Minotaur to lift up and straighten the wardrobe in the hidden room. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The 2 put the wardrobe heavily, and then hid in front of the wall and took out their weapons. After the Avengers' ammunition supply, we are now at the time when ammunition is most sufficient. The Minotaur took advantage of that time to push a cabinet over to block the window, and then took advantage of the short gap to reload his weapon. Mauser and others can only run with each other now, and the villagers were alarmed by the running, so the lame Lewis immediately commanded the villagers to chase after them. As soon as they entered, Leon immediately grabbed Lewis' collar. "Your guy." Ashley looked at the exit door disguised with fallen leaves with an anxious look, while Wyan and Dabai were on the side to guard against the situation of the villagers. "Are we chasing?" Ashley asked without any surprise. Wyan and the Minotaur panted and waved their hands to indicate that they were busy. "There is no hidden room in front of this wardrobe." After crossing a wooden bridge, Luo Guang and others saw a wooden house with a yard, but before they approached the house, the door was opened from the inside. "Why did he help you?" Wyan looked at the Minotaur who was leaving and asked the key point directly. "We came from the opposite direction to Mauser. A small group of villagers, led by Fang Zhening, surrounded us. Maybe Lewis was not prepared, and no matter what he did, I raised my arms to defend and blocked Wyan's bullets." The Minotaur stopped and continued loudly, "Because it can make you feel worse." "What is this?" Fang Zhening looked at Dabai and asked curiously. "What's wrong with you?" Ashley was very scared when she saw the blood coughed up by her subordinates. Dabai also followed Mauser's instructions and followed in front of Ashley to protect Ashley. The Baneling villagers were very kind, so Fang Zhe directly took out the Remington M870 shotgun to treat them coldly. Although the Minotaur had no questions, I had time to ask them in detail now. Suppress. Big heart flash bomb. Mauser walked in front and returned to the ground closely in front of the Minotaur. Therefore, Fang Zhening's firepower sustainability was also enough to suppress the enemy. Ashley was the one with the strongest physical fitness outside the team, so Mauser also asked Ashley and directly picked up the other princess and ran away. Seeing this, Mauser immediately advanced, ran to the hidden room, and left through the tight passage. As long as Louis attacks the door, we will run away immediately, but we did not wait for any enemy attack sound, which made Mauser and others very confused. So all the bullets outside the 12-gauge shotgun accurately hit the Baneling villager and shut him up. In fact, the reason why these villagers did not continue to chase Mauser and us was because we had not retreated into the defense area of other villagers, so we could leave our defense area without orders. If you run up like that, you will be exhausted, Mauser asked Wyan, who was running at full speed. Very bad. You are in the same group. The Minotaur took the walkie-talkie, turned around and walked a few steps forward, with a genuine smile on his face. Mauser immediately went back in, locked the door, and then said to Ashley, "Hurry, find a place to hide. You came there from the factory, and when you were resting, you found that the villagers were surrounding you, so you planned to leave from the front door, but you happened to meet them, so you think they were also being chased." Ashley nodded, and just as she was about to speak, her chest felt stuffy and she started coughing with severe pain. The attack range of the shotgun is not as close as people imagine, and this situation in the game is less for balance considerations. At the same time, the shotgun also scatters into flowers as soon as it leaves the barrel, and it is still relatively stable at a certain distance. The Avengers did not tell the Minotaur about the hidden room, but the Minotaur knew about the narrow passage. Because the passage was dug out by the Avengers. Mauser and the Minotaur heard Ashley's voice. The TMP submachine gun has a fully automatic function, but I didn't hold the trigger tightly and shoot. Instead, I single-shotted the enemies one by one, using the fully automatic to achieve the effect of semi-automatic. Louis looked into the house, and then with an order, the other villagers stopped and launched a retreat. "Come in quickly," Louis waved his hand to let Luo Guang and others in. In order to ensure lighting and ventilation, there are 7 windows on the first floor of the room, 8 of which are in the living room where Mauser and I are. Big dog. Fang Zhening panted and pointed at the huge wooden gate behind him. It was used by the villagers to block the road and was raised and lowered by hinges. Wyan squeezed the trigger tightly, exerting the full firing rate of the submachine gun, and swept down the enemies who were too close behind him. Wyan turned around and shot, hitting the villagers who were crawling back, and then continued to attack the enemies on his side. The enemy was numerous, and it was only because of Mauser and Wyan's suppression that the enemy got too close to the wooden house, but the guns would never run out of bullets, and the Minotaurs were professional warriors after all, so they could hit the target every time. In order to get information from Louis, Luo Guang and his men immediately followed. Mauser walked over directly and lifted the wardrobe with ease. That time, Fang Zhe made full use of his 100% Baneling ability. He chose a lucky villager in a sparse enemy area and shot the head with one shot. The parasites that exploded in front of him would flail around his body and beat up the surrounding villagers, falling to the ground, delaying the retreat. "Hey, I'll listen to your explanation for the rest of this matter." The Minotaur saw Ashley and immediately changed the subject. "Oh, he found the missing Sinulita, who is it?" This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Mauser told the Tauren his subsequent speculation. Seeing Wei Ang put away the rifle, I put my arm up and used my other hand to pull out the protruding bullet from the opposite side of the bullet hole. He knew it was a parasite. There are no 8 windows in the living room, so 8 people are guarding one window each. He was also the host of a parasite, Wei Ang said in surprise. Because I know that there is a way to explain why I left Wei Ang and ran away alone. Usually Wei Ang saved my life later, although the method was not rude. Mauser had a pistol in his hand and kept firing, using semi-automatic to produce full automatic effects. The Lewis pistol does not use the same diluting method as the special pistol. It uses a bullet bridge to push the bullet back from the bottom of the magazine in one breath. After the bullet is compressed and the bullet bridge piece is pulled out, the diluting can be completed smoothly. The 8 Mausers all saw that Fang Zhenning did not have a long scar on his chest. The Minotaur put away his usual idleness, looked at Ashley seriously, and asked, "Ashley, is that the first time he coughs and bleeds?" "Come with you." The Tauren knew the road and started running before slowly confirming his current position. Yeah, Ashley took the flashlight and walkie-talkie and crawled out of the hidden room. When Wei Ang saw this, he first went to the back door to confirm the door lock, then ran to the front door and blocked the only window here with a cabinet. Baneling bugs also appeared in the villagers on the Wyan and Tauren side, and the baneling bug rate was much lower than during the day. Mauser took over Wei Ang's job at this time, took out his shotgun and fired empty bullets at Fang Zhenning, who was rushing over, but that failed to stop Fang Zhenning's momentum. Because Lewis's stone hammer blocked all the fatal projectiles. "Ashley, give it to him." Mauser handed a flashlight and walkie-talkie to Ashley, who was bending down. "Without instructions from you or Wei Ang, don't come out. There is no need to call you." The villagers were also stupid. They quickly discovered that Fang Zhenning's side was the breakthrough point and increased the manpower here. "I never thought they would guess so little without any evidence or intelligence." Fang Zhenning smiled bitterly and continued, "Ashley's current symptoms are not early symptoms of Plaka parasitic infection. As for the Tauren, they seem to be very unfamiliar with the Yisai pistol. The small capacity of 20 rounds should be more than enough to face the enemies on my side." The Tauren waited for Mauser halfway through the tight passage with a helpless expression, and then the 2 people in front continued to retreat and met up with Wei Ang, Ashley, and Dabai. "Wei Ang, there is no easy passage outside this hidden room, come here slowly." Ashley's voice sounded from outside Ang's walkie-talkie. The 8 people looked at each other. Mauser asked Ashley to hand the walkie-talkie to Fang Zhenning and said, "The channel radio is broken." Fang Zhenning looked at the people surrounding him and walked towards the wooden house, intending to complete the task assigned to me by the village chief in one fell swoop. "I can't help anyone else, so I'll help you." The Tauren came to the living room, walked to the sideways upturned wardrobe, and said, "It's great to see them. The game is over." The Minotaur took out a Yisai C96 pistol, which cannot be called a box gun or a shell gun. That gun was given by Diego and us to the Tauren for self-defense. "I actually didn't even know I had a fever, even though it was just a low fever." Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 253. Chapter 247. Ada and Lewis. "He ran away again," Leon said, looking at Lewis, who was waving goodbye with the walkie-talkie. But since he chose to believe him, Leon only complained and said nothing more. "Luo Guang, I don't want to become like the villagers, a puppet who only obeys others' orders." Ashley was thinking about Lewis' words, and the more she thought about it, the more scared she became. First, he took out a glass of water from his backpack, then Luo Guang gently held Ashley's hand, wet it with clean water, and used his thumb to help her wipe the blood off the palm of her hand. "Don't worry, I won't let you become like that." Luo Guang's soft words calmed Ashley a little, and Leon on the other side also nodded to indicate that he would not let this happen and would definitely save Ashley. "Okay, I'll go protect Lewis. Leon, take Ashley and Xiaobai and continue to move towards the castle." Luo Guang drank a few sips of the remaining water in the bottle and threw it to Leon. He was too lazy to put it back in the backpack. As for Ashley, she had just drunk it at the meeting place. Luo Guang still had bottled water in his backpack, but it couldn't be wasted. After all, the water in this damn place was not clean, and there was no time to make a fire for them to boil water. Luo Guang, don't you trust Lewis? Ashley replied. Then you can't help, he will teach you, Ashley said loudly. Wang, he is responsible for protecting Ashley. I believe it. So I just follow him for a while to make sure he won't be caught by the villagers again. There are a total of 109 rounds under your body, remember. But you only have 3 rifle magazines, which will cause your support ability to decrease slightly before you finish 3 magazines. Then there is only you, a handsome guy. By the way, did he bring cigarettes? Simmons asked. Received. Sadler had only sent a message before, whether there was any regression remote control. Although they are all pheromones for tracking, they smell the same in Ada's modulation. The Lewis parasites found by the Dark Cult are all made from parasites other than Amber as genes, and the Dark Cult has not been able to mass produce or clone the Amber parasites so far. Although Simmons and Lewis have reached a cooperation agreement offline, there is not much trust between them. Anyway, the reproductive Lewis parasites are to be completed. Although the Amber parasites are unique, they are necessary for my plan, and are more like icing on the cake. First, Perka only needs to let the villagers imprison Simmons, and I will bring the new parasites for Ashley to that place. He's waiting for you to finish speaking. Ada comforted him and continued, you go first, sneak in and deal with these villagers. We immediately hid in front of a small rock to discuss how to fight, and then we will face a fierce battle. The tracking pheromones in the air showed that Zhao's Haiqiang was determined. He drove to the unmarked rural road with a familiar look, which meant that he was a local and had nothing to do with the Dark Cult or any other organization. So it's your fault now, Lewis said, with a smile that showed no security. Wang, Ashley. Ada chased the 2 people and the wolf. Along with the photo, there was no message from Ada. Lead the way. Zhao Ji wiped his hands and said. Amber evolved from the Lewis parasite that was sealed by the Salazar family. In fact, when Simmons was locked in the basement with a sack, Zhao Ji had already tracked my location and prepared to rescue me. The reason why Zhao's Haiqiang was able to survive was because I had hidden the Amber parasite, so after I told him the whereabouts of Amber, Zhao's Haiqiang vented his anger on Simmons. Not yet, Ada, I haven't heard Wang's answer yet. Therefore, Amber is also an important research material for the leader of Plaka. However, due to the storm, Plaka, who had just set out for a short time, was forced to return. Pay attention to the future. Ashley walked over slowly. Make the rear area a defensive position for the Dark Church. For the future, they sacrificed their lives and built a strong and breakable defense line for you, so that these stupid invaders who dared to step into this place would have no return and pay for their sins with blood. If so, the injection of the new Zhao's Haiqiang parasite would require Plaka to come in person. Wyan added, even if it's not easy behind, you can only retreat. Sadler didn't reply to Zhao Ji immediately, and he knew that he was admiring Lewis's photos or was delayed by other things. Simmons tilted his neck, past Lewis, and walked at the back. I just didn't have anything else to take. Ada smiled and said, you can't worry. Okay, but how did we contact each other before? Yi's looked down at Zhao's Haiqiang, but didn't answer. Instead, he looked left and right to confirm the danger and the tracking. Ada and the others walked along the way, hoping to see the tip of the iceberg of the enemy's defense position. Before the first 2 people confirmed some details in detail, Ada set off first, while Wyan and Ashley needed to wait in front of the stone for Zhao Ji to clean up the enemies who were going down the sentry tower. What a coincidence, you have it with you now. He should have praised you for doing so badly since you came. If you took the trouble to hide it after being caught, he should have collected your body now. The mission target has been found. This chapter is not over yet, please click the next page to continue reading. Simon's is mango flavor, Ashley is strawberry flavor, and Wyan is milk flavor. When the storm passed, I received news that the 8 people who were captured had escaped. Zhao Zhiqiang stole a sample of ordinary parasites from the parasite laboratory of the Dark Church, which was not the amber mentioned by Lewis. 3-dimensional defense, that's a bad solution. Wyan held a low-function telescope and observed the situation. That's a solution. Is there something wrong with Simmons? Wyan asked about Simmons. The bad deal you negotiated is that he gives you the amber you need, and you take him away alive. If there is no amber, there is no need to talk about anything, Simmons. Zhao Ji took the paper handed over by Wyan, and there was a notice on the outside, called Weakened Defense. Your target is first placed under the sentry tower. Ada pointed to the sentry tower closest to herself and others. Ashley then helped Wyan to watch the wind, and nodded to show that she understood what she was going to do. The road was dug by the villagers, and the rock walls on the side were uneven, which made Simmons feel a little effortless. Wyan trusted Zhao Ji very much, and after hearing what I said, Wyan didn't ask any more questions. Although there was nothing about amber in her memory, Ada believed that Lewis would meet her, or more accurately, Wyan, before, so it was necessary to track him now. The walkie-talkie I gave Simmons also came with tracking pheromones, so Ada easily caught up with Simmons, but I didn't show up, but kept a distance and followed Simmons carefully. There was a fork in the middle, one of which was not marked as the direction to the castle, but the other one had no signs. The mobile phone cameras of the X organization are poor, military-grade stuff. Something happened. You didn't meet any villagers along the way, so you left very slowly and Simmons didn't find you. So the villagers in that place are now in this defensive position. Where did you find it? Ada wanted to confirm the enemy's defensive position in which area. Anyway, the 2 protagonists, Zhao Ji and Wyan, don't have the attribute of running away after solving the biochemical crisis. Although these villagers have not received professional training, our physical fitness is not enough to cause trouble to Ada and us. But the problem is that Lewis met the village chief before helping Wyan to heal his injuries, and he fought with the 2 of them. Although Perka was angry, the situation could not be saved, but I also went out on my own and decided to let a capable person in my hands solve the problem for me and the person who caused the problem. Ada's hearing is very bad, and there is no noise around, so Simmons and I all heard and remembered our conversation. It's just that the place is still very primitive and there are no cold weapons and equipment, but Wyan and Ashley may have had them long ago. That "did you bring cigarettes?" was the communication code between Zhao Zhiqiang and Lewis. At this time, Lewis and Simmons were getting farther and farther away from me, but Ida and I didn't follow them. Simmons came to Lewis's low platform and ended the rock climbing exercise on the rock wall. Before confirming where my own road was going, I returned the same way and smelled the pheromones left by Wyan and Ashley at the fork. Aiden nodded, and then chased Simmons. The village chief's house was just below the road to the village square behind the abandoned factory, so I wanted to stay at home and guard it directly. Simmons defended himself. Is there a smell that is exclusive to someone? It's all made up on the spur of the moment. Simmons can always carry amber with him, so there is no excuse. Anyway, I want to take it myself, so Lewis naturally refused. Aiden nodded. With my ability, I don't need Wyan to disconnect the gun to cover myself, so if Ashley doesn't help to load the bullet, the problem is small. Aiden nodded to Wyan, but I thought about how to fight that fierce battle very quickly. Lewis looked at Simmons, who was approaching with great care. First, where is Amber? Is it under him? He came at a bad time. Take a look at that. Wyan's face was not a little solemn. Wyan felt that there were few suspicious points under Simmons, but now the other party couldn't solve the parasites under me and Ashley, so I had to choose Simmons. I also took a picture of Lewis' current appearance with my mobile phone, and then sent it to Sadler. Ada glanced at the text message and put the phone away. That is not only a piece of the puzzle of my unified world, but also a necessity for me to complete my revenge on someone, and Lewis accepted the commission of that person and then traded. That's right. Does he have enough bullets for his rifle? I just picked them up from the ground. Wyan glanced at the sentry tower, then turned his gaze to the Springfield M1903 rifle behind him. Then you take Ashley to cover him down there and deal with these enemies. We are now in a canyon terrain, just like the valley that Wyan passed by when he returned to the village square from the abandoned factory. Luo Guang patted Leon's shoulder and added some tracking pheromones to him, and for Ashley, he added some when he shook her hand just now. For Sadler, who was pursuing Lewis like crazy, that photo was not a gift that could not be bought without money or power. Hey, beautiful man, are you admiring the moon alone outside? Simmons saw Yisai and walked over with some expectation. The villagers built wooden frames on both sides of the canyon and set up patrols on both sides. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Although the villagers arranged manpower everywhere to retreat for defense, we and our leaders did not have the corresponding military knowledge, so the sentry posts arranged were left with many loopholes despite the lack of manpower. Wei Ang reminds Ada of a big-breasted dog, Ashley's lips remind me of strawberries, and Zhao's Haiqiang is my first impression of Simmons, a rather cold-hearted person, so I arranged a cold fruit. The village chief who went to transfer Simmons missed the opportunity with Wei Ang. Zhao Ji had a way to deal with the village chief before, so he chose to avoid the danger and advance. The village chief who attacked the enemy went back to look for Simmons, and unexpectedly met Wei Ang who was about to untie Simmons. Zhao's hyena just started, and Wei Ang immediately said, "Does he want to face it alone again? You are teammates." Seeing Simmons on his feet reaching for him, Zhao Ji went over to lend a hand and pulled me down. "He's too preoccupied, yes It's not wrong for an ordinary researcher like you to achieve that level. And I'm sure he could have come to help you earlier. Now that you haven't completed the transaction, you're upset." My heart left that place together. The storm drifted from where Plaka was to the village, so before learning that the leader had a way to set off immediately, the village chief chose to lock Wyan and Simons into an abandoned factory before surrendering to the leader. Through these recent events, I have discovered one thing or a pattern. Although this is not the same as the situation outside the Resident Evil 4 game that I remember, the overall context is basically the same. While looking for a place to stay, I stopped talking and said, "You can take him to get it now, that's okay." The reason why Ashley reminded Zhao Ji of the word nuisance pear and made a snow pear flavored tracking pheromone was because the Ashley I met had not done anything disturbing so far. We later kept in touch offline. At this time, although yes I used a masculine screen name offline, the voice of the conversation was processed to sound like a man or a woman. That's why Simmons and Wei Ang exchanged secret codes when they first met. But amber parasites are not necessarily rare for anyone. "Bring it." "I'm sure he likes smoking." Zhao Ji said this, but he actually took out the cigarette and handed it over. "Is there another way to go? Have Zhao Ji and Simmons both taken this way?" Ashley asked. "Of course, for Zhao Ji, who knows the plot of Biochemical 4, I know that Simmons is a researcher of the dark cult outside the game, but the situation outside of that has not changed much, so I need to confirm it myself." Ada shook her head and replied, "You haven't explored the road yet. This road leads back from the mountain. My back hurts. I feel uncomfortable sitting or standing, so I can only lie down and type on my phone." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 254. Chapter 248, Battle of the Canyon. Taking advantage of the fact that the patrolling villagers did not look at Luo Guang's road at that moment, he immediately rushed out, then slid and hid behind a wooden wall before the enemy turned his head. The villagers built a lot of single-sided wooden walls or sheds with wood, which became the cover that Luo Guang could choose. This time, Luo Guang only had the invisible Gurkha saber in his hand and did not intend to use a gun. There were villagers holding crossbows on the high platform not far away, but with the flying speed of the crossbow arrows and the current distance between the two sides, if the enemy wanted to hit Luo Guang, there was only one possibility, that Luo Guang would accidentally hit him. The villager closest to him walked into the blind spot of other villagers. Luo Guang rushed out immediately after confirming that no one was paying attention to him. Because the wooden wall blocked Leon and Ashley's sight before, Luo Guang used the fastest speed this time and went directly to deal with the villagers. Luo Guang put the villager who was cut into two pieces into the corner of the wall, and then poked his head out of the wall to confirm the current position of other enemies and the route he was about to take to the watchtower. Neither Luo Guang nor Leon thought that they could assassinate silently throughout the process. The villagers on the ground had a roof to block them, and the wooden wall could provide cover. But there were high platforms on both sides of the canyon, and the villagers on the wooden bridge had no place to hide after being killed. So sooner or later there would be a fierce battle, and their initial plan was to pave the way for this. Luo Guang, Ashley covered her mouth and exclaimed in a low voice. "Ashley, pack up and prepare to move." The two chainsaw girls fell to the ground instantly, and the chainsaws in their hands could not protect their heads when they lost balance, and they were killed by Ada one by one in the head again. Ashley was even scared to stop, watching these villagers with weapons rush to the place where Ada fell. Leon also saw this and was worried, because Ada was climbing the unverified wooden frame structure on the right, and the sentry tower was at the bottom of the structure. Because the 12-gauge shotgun bullets were not enough to face the scrap iron armor under the two enemies, I directly took out the broken wing butterfly with one hand and shot the knees of the two enemies respectively. You can always put all your eggs in one basket. That section of the journey was not for Ritus to observe Luo Guang. Ritus stopped and said, "A wooden house. Originally, before you escaped, you planned to get Amber and then complete the transaction with him. Facing the enemy behind him. The seventh knife, all the enemies were cut off by Ada's sweeping move. The Gurkha saber made of TG-01 ordinary alloy in his hand, after so much time, still had not a drop of blood stuck to it, as if there was no waterproof coating under the blade. The white knife retreated, or the white knife came out. Wyan finally fired the first shot and solved the parasite in the body of the villager who fired the hot arrow later. I was worried that I would be caught again, so I dared to take out the amber and carry it with me, planning to go around and get it before getting rid of the enemy. Ritus knew that he would definitely take the amber first, and Zhang Fang would definitely follow him to that place again, and then he would lose a free bodyguard. Ada did not stay in the sentry tower for a long time, and sent a letter to Wyan. Before the number, I will start again from that place. I will kill deep into the canyon, attract the attention of the villagers, and let us go to the sniper point smoothly. So Litos must have completed the transaction now, and there is only one result, which is that he was kidnapped directly by Luo Guang. Litos's childhood was also very rough. When I was born, my mother passed away, and I have been living with my grandfather ever since. Although it doesn't look amazing, Ada can't attribute it to the weapon in her hand. It is indeed a wide field of vision to below and above, but things like wooden sheds under the ground can't hinder me from observing the ground's situation. Of course, for a few seconds, parasites gushed out of the head of the chainsaw girl, and tore the surrounding wooden sheds to pieces with their claws and teeth. Young Litos has always been a child who is very curious about everything and wants to learn all knowledge. Luo Guang raised his eyebrows and asked, "Have the parasites under him been cleared? If so, he can run out. It only takes 2 swords to deal with those villagers." But when we found Zhang Fang and threw the farm tools or shot the crossbow arrows, I was not close enough to the villagers standing guard at the watchtower. Thinking back to what I said when I discussed countermeasures later, I couldn't help but feel ashamed. Litos focused on the road behind him. Did he notice the worry in Luo Guang's eyes in front of him? He thought that the other party was concerned about who the inhibitor was for and that he was hinting at something else. With one go, he climbed down, and then punched the villager who poked his head out of the watchtower back. Then Zheng Fang turned over and entered, drew his saber, chopped at the enemy, and cut the enemy into two halves on the right and left. Didn't you forget the deal, so you came there to get those first? Isn't that amber? Luo Guang watched Zheng Fangui remove a stone from the wall, took out a large shoulder bag from outside, and then took out an iron box wrapped with tape from outside to check if it was damaged. It didn't seem to be an enemy trap, and these villagers who were dying fell into it with Ada. Then I continued to look for villagers with crossbows to help Zheng Fang deal with these enemies attacking from a distance. Wei Ang and Ashley immediately ended their departure when they received Zheng Fang's signal. The very few enemies below the ground were attracted by Zheng Fang. Dabai, who had not yet been informed of the route by Ada, led the way. The two of us, the speed is also very slow. Ada, Wei Ang and Ashley saw that scene at the same time. Litos put away the iron box and put his backpack on his back before saying, "It's cleared. You gave it to someone else, and you agreed to it." The sound of Wei Ang's sniper gunfire came, but my target had already been placed under the Turin. Litos was also afraid of strangers and often told Beluius a story about a knight riding a donkey. Ada hadn't figured out the climbing route after climbing. Just like these speed climbers, she climbed slowly to the bottom of the sentry tower. Until one day, a small fire burned down Litos's home, and only Litos escaped from the sea of fire. Luo Guang quickly thought of Wei Ang. Since Wei Ang needed parasite inhibitory drugs, it meant that Wei Ang and I were infected with parasites. With the first cut, Ada cut off all the farm tools before dodging them. The content of the deal only stated that he would take Litos out of there alive, but did not mention the arrangements before leaving, so Luo Guang's kidnapping would be regarded as keeping his word. The villager's arrow was wrong and hit the shield directly in the head, so Ada had to make a stab at the shield alone to eliminate the parasite in his body. Luo Guang is of course not honest. Your current employer, Wesker, is short of such a talented researcher, so Wesker named him and wanted to take Litos away alive. Maybe, you just want to remind him, but then he won't be as nervous as he was just now. But Ada is the prey. She wields the weapon in her hand. Is there any villager who is my enemy with one move? But when you went outside, you were discovered by the villagers, and then you were surrounded. Outside the long and narrow canyon, the villagers rushed towards Ada one after another. It reminded me of this movie called Zombie World War. The zombies outside also rushed towards their prey in this way. Yes, that is the inhibitory drug for Plaka parasite. Bang. After saying that, Litos took another step. When she went hunting with Li Gong, Zheng Fangui was naturally very worried when she saw that scene. Wan Xia's parasites have had their abilities improved in all aspects, but what Wei Ang holds in his hands is not the later pistol, but a rifle. Thinking that she would have to stay under this guard tower later, Ashley understood why Zheng Fang wanted to throw away the body. While the current magazine was still empty, Ashley took the time to look up at Zheng Fang and immediately discovered the situation of the two chainsaw men. Wei Ang answered Ashley's words with action, replaced the new magazine, and then put the bullet vertically under the chainsaw woman's parasite. Therefore, the two parasites were eliminated one by Wei Ang before they could even use their magic power. These villagers were blind, so they naturally spotted Ada climbing. As the chief of the village, Mr. Litos first decided to entrust the village to Luis Mendez, the tyrant-like village chief we met. Ada paused before arranging tasks for herself, presumably to take care of her own emotions. Then I just stared at Xiao Huo, and finally on the morning of the 7th day, I left the village alone. "Where are we going to pick you up?" Zheng Fang asked casually, and the rest of the matter was revealed. After all, it is in your interest to save Wei Ang. The people in the previous sentry tower had already been dealt with by Wei Ang, and they were not waiting for Ada to push back and clear the enemies on the way. But the bad news was long-lasting. During a hunting trip, Litus's father was bitten by a wolf that clearly shot through his head. The wound soon swelled and changed color. Even though I was at the forefront, I still considered Ashley's mental endurance and casually threw the body that was divided into two halves up. Although Zhang Fanghui's home was burned down by a small fire, with the help of the cold-hearted villagers, the house was finally saved from burning down. It was now convenient for me to bury the things I took out from the Parasite Research Institute. So I only heard the sound of the chainsaw, but I couldn't detect the position and movements of the chainsaw girl in time. The enemy's sickles, axes, and other agricultural tools are all sharpened, and the villagers' physical fitness has reached the limit of the human body. It is a bad judgment to determine whether the power of a hit or a 9mm peanut is stronger. The more she used the saber, the easier it felt for Ada, and the saber became sharper, as if every soul that died on the saber would weaken the saber. There were two chainsaw girls who started the chainsaw under the ground, and there was no ladder or stairs that could be found. Instead, they tried to rush towards Ada's feet and cut off the support on my feet. With the presence of parasites, the villagers have stirred up trouble. For Zhang Fang, our current situation is not enough. And my father-in-law is a rare person outside the village who has seen the world. He has discovered that Zhang Fanghui's intelligence and insight are beyond my years since he was a child. He also doubts that I will never have the chance to leave that remote village in the future. If I can become an outstanding scholar. Wyan, this way Ashley helped Wyan press another magazine and put it where I could easily take it. It was just a matter of course. How could it involve trust? Litos asked back, and then said, and you also want him to be torn between taking you away or helping you deliver medicine. You know he can. I'd rather leave that handsome guy of yours behind. Just when Ada and I were playing hunting duel with the villagers, Litos brought Luo Guang to the first destination, my home. Who is it? Yes, he didn't tell you. You are interested in that. Although Biluis knows fewer words, he is honest, steady, and grateful. That is also the main reason why Litus Ligong chose me. I want to find someone to help me take care of my grandson. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. The wooden bridge is not in the same position, and these villagers who gathered when they saw the enemy are crowded under the bridge. Received. Don't be narcissistic. As long as you get the amber, you will immediately call for an evacuation helicopter. I'm sure he will rush down, so don't blame you for leaving first. Luo Guang's words were actually too bastard. At least Litos could hear that Luo Guang really wanted to complete the transaction and take him away. Don't forget his transaction. In order to take over the important task of village chief from Litus Ligong as soon as possible, Biluis often visited Zhang Fanghui's house. Did he mean that these villagers are still here? I am sure he was worried that these villagers would go to trouble Wyan above if they fell, so Ada directly charged with a bull and hit the villagers like a bowling ball. So it would be a bit scary to resist the enemy's attack by yourself. Zhang Fang also wanted to expose the existence of her hardened armor. Of course, I just wanted to deal with these farm tools and kill the enemy with one knife. I didn't expect that I would meet Wyan again as soon as I opened the front door, and the plan was finally abandoned. For Luo Guang, you are only interested in amber, so Litos thought that the other party was hinting that he should give you an explanation. Zhang Fang snorted and said, does he trust you? In the past few days, Litos's grandfather's illness became more and more serious, but I, who was talented and intelligent, could do nothing about it, which laid the groundwork for my choice to study medicine and other related majors a few days ago. Zhang Fang, who was mowing the grass, saw the Minotaur running over nearby, and heard the sound of double chainsaws in his ears. Suddenly, there was a slight movement under my feet, and the wooden bridge I was standing on collapsed. Aiden naturally noticed the position and intention of the chainsaw man. Although the distance was not far, Ashley, who witnessed Zhang Fang throwing the two halves of the man up separately, still felt a little disgusted. It was because she recalled that when she was in the church, Ada deliberately asked her to close her eyes. So we climbed down the sentry tower without any obstacles and ended our cover for Ada. With a whoosh, a crossbow arrow shot at Zhang Fang, and Zhang Fang took a villager as a shield. The enemy was still approaching Ada, and Ada threw the shield in her hand to block the enemy's latest wave of attacks. Watching Zhang Fang killing 7 people, these villagers were even less likely to give me heads, and I felt a little bit of a taste, but I felt that I was still too strong. Lito Siro was born in that village and is a veritable local, so I know that there is no hidden room in this wooden house in the defense war. As for leaving that damn place or delivering medicine to Weiang, after Zhang Fang we made the choice between the two options. I think we should first confirm whether Luo Guanzhu will abide by the transaction promise, or shoot yourself before getting the amber. Meow, if there are typos, you can press and hold the typos on the mobile phone to correct them. Meow. I feel a little dizzy, I'm going to sleep. Meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong. Meow. Chapter 255. Chapter 249. Giant. The collapse of the wooden bridge under his feet was indeed beyond Luo Guang's expectation, because the bridge was not destroyed by human beings. Simply put, this section was not stable enough when it was built, causing the villagers to rush up and exceed the load-bearing limit of the wooden bridge, which eventually caused the wooden bridge to fall apart. Although Luo Guang was in free fall, his body quickly maintained balance. He did not fall down when he landed, and his legs stood firmly on the ground. The first moment after standing firm, Luo Guang retreated to one side, watching the villagers who did not have time to stop falling from above and hitting the villagers' meat pads below. Luo Guang couldn't help but think how cool it would be if he had a burning grenade or a Molotov cocktail in his hand to roast them directly. At this time, Ashley's voice calling his name reached Luo Guang's ears, but he had no time to respond to her now. Instead, he took this opportunity to take the saber and solve the enemies who were in chaos one by one. After Luo Guang had dealt with the enemies, Leon and Ashley finally arrived, and then Ashley vomited under Luo Guang's gaze. Ashley had not reacted much before because she had seen it from a distance, but now she saw the broken limbs in front of Luo Guang from a close distance, and the bloody stench warned her fellows, which made people instinctively stay away from this dangerous area, and finally Ashley vomited uncontrollably. Leon, you shouldn't have brought Ashley here, Luo Guang complained. Leon's face turned a little pale, but there was no other adverse reaction. He replied, Ashley, you are worried about him. But no one expected him to make the enemy look like that. My words made Ashley's mind reappear this hellish scene, and then she turned her head and vomited again. Sorry, you should question him. Wyan seemed to understand the meaning of Dabai's call. Dabai has been following you obediently, so he should run around. Will it be like that later? Of course, I just thought so, and I didn't regret it. When the enemy comes, the general will stop it. When the water comes, the earth will cover it. You should go to see the situation first. They are taking a break now. Bang, Liang Cheng first tried to see if the giant's head was hard enough. Woof, Dabai felt that there was nothing wrong with the name of the move, which was very appropriate. As for whether it was a wolf head or a dog head, wolves and dogs have been separated since ancient times, and Dabai, who was educated by the broken wings, cared about it so much. It's okay if there is no money, and it's used to make patterns and so on. In fact, our company doesn't have a production line inside, specializing in making weapons to test materials. After saying that, Liang Cheng put Ashley up, then Wei is problematic. Unfortunately, this giant is mentally mature and fell into a deep sleep very early, causing its first reaction before waking up to be hunger, and its seventh reaction was not that the guy who was talking at hand looked edible. Sparks flashed, and Luo Guang Butterfly's bullet penetrated the giant's iron helmet and shot through its head. Ashley, what does he mean by also? Jie touched his chin and said. The villagers didn't forget to lock the iron door. Our purpose is to let the enemy retreat and then use secret weapons to deal with the enemy. And the Plaka parasite hosts don't have parasites as receivers, so can't I use my ability to interfere with the enemy's reception of signals? To Wei Ang, Jie was very grateful. I also saw a few villagers appear outside my field of vision for a while and then went forward. That is in line with the requirements of weakened defense, and with the control of the parasite, Jie thinks these villagers can follow the leader's orders. After asking about the manufacturer, Wei Ang was still very curious. You don't remember this company, but it seems to be a company specializing in knives. Licking his fingers, the sleeping young giant still felt hungry, and immediately set his eyes on Jie's body. As for the white next to Jie, because of its large size, it was still enough for the giant to fill its teeth, so it temporarily ignored the white. The white next to it had not yet smelled the strong smell of parasites from under the giant, and after a few howls, it went around the giant. Wyan replied, it's a pity that the white has not been trained. It can confirm the content of the signal by calling a few times, but will it really run to other places when it comes back to report the news? Wyan, since I met Liang Cheng, it is not today that I have fully realized that Jie is not weak in actual combat. Alas, Liang Cheng jumped on the spot, then lay on the edge of the wooden bridge with one hand, turned over and climbed down. The upper force was small and heavy, because the distance was very close. Jie accelerated from 0 to avoid it in time, so I chose a seemingly simple avoidance method, jumping on the spot, just like skipping rope to avoid the sweeping attack of the stone hammer. Something. Although Ashley answered that way, the physiological nausea was so difficult to overcome. I suddenly thought of something, but it involves my own ability, so it is convenient to say it out. As expected, the giant did not fall down, but stood up with a shaken body, roaring and rushing towards Liang Cheng. The body of the monster is a big child, or even a guilty baby. As mentioned later in the Dark Canon, the poor old woman sacrificed her beloved child. As for the first half of Wyan's doubts, Ji had not answered yet, and Dabai barked to protest. It is necessary to guess that Ji directly pushed open the unlocked iron door. Liang Cheng understood what Wyan said before, and replied, bad things made by metal industry company. That's right. You can't feel the grievance behind its cry. Wei Ang scratched the front of his head. I was sure that Dabai said something, but I didn't feel that way. Ji Xiao knew what Wei Ang was thinking. If he could smile and say that Wei Ang was humble. Liang Cheng shook his head and said, when something happens, habits become bad. Although you want him to get used to those scenes, there is a way to avoid it. Just like before, the wolf's head suddenly shrank again, and Dabai managed to chew on a piece of meat, causing the charging giant to stumble and fall to the ground. Well, that's right, Ashley said as she wrapped her arms around Liang Cheng's neck as if Princess Zai was used to hugging her. As for the direct solution using electricity, what Wei Ang and Ashley have in common is that they don't have parasites in their bodies. In fact, I have always been curious about how parasites communicate with each other. The Sadler leader's broadcast and control range of parasites is not that far after all. I'm sorry, Ashley, for letting you see that tragic scene. It seemed that Dabai hadn't mastered the new trick puppy head yet, so Zai couldn't criticize him. Jie chose to fight alone that time, and Wei Ang repeatedly praised him and said he wanted to go too. When Sadler gave the order, Ji didn't notice the radio waves or any other stuff on the side. Switching Luo Guang butterfly to his right hand, Ji clenched his fist with his left hand and rushed towards the giant. The surrounding villagers, Xiao Xiao, have not yet been dealt with, and there are still some villagers deep in the canyon who have not come over, but have gone to move out the secret weapons, so Ji and we finally have no time to take a breath. Ashley said strangely, Wei Ang, can he also understand Dabai's words? They both shook their heads at the same time. Dabai, he will go with you. After saying that, Ji continued to say to Wei Ang, there must be something going on behind the scenes, so just ask Dabai to come back to find them. Two pits appeared directly in the mud where the giants stepped. He held a stone hammer with both hands and raised it low to hit the broken wings. Let Dabai inform you. If he sees it as anxious, it means you are in trouble and need support. It's not like Zai. Let Dabai act as a microphone. The monster had just smashed a villager into paste, then picked up the paste with its other hand and ate it. So magical, Ji said casually, starting the conversation. Now I'm starting to figure it out, and I still don't have a definite approach in mind. By the time Umbrella Corporation was wiped out, one of the tyrants produced could beat him, and some tyrants or biochemical weapons were deceived by him pretending to be a pig, and were then unprepared to be hit by him with his weakest blow. Solve. Liang Chen directly picked up Ashley again and walked through the broken limbs. Bimax, who had circled around the enemy's blind spot, found the opportunity and bit the giant's front ankle. Bad job. Even if Sadler or Salazar, who possesses the dominant Plaka parasite, knows about the situation, there is nothing they can do about it, because the giant does not understand the meaning of our orders at all. And the weak ones control the activities of the giants. Sadler and Salazar are not so leisurely. Anyway, these villagers are expendable in our eyes. It seems that the T. Veronica virus's built-in sensing ability can continue to be explored and used. Liang Cheng thought this way, and for the first time he felt that he had solved Alexia too early. The area in front is very narrow and wide, and is the canyon terrain behind. Similar to the square, houses are built around the circle, presumably as temporary residences for villagers working outside. The body slowly repaired, and the giant stood up again. He shook the fat on his belly and seemed to show off his stored energy to Ji. But Ji could tell at a glance that the energy storage capacity of the opponent's cells was not that exciting. The president is so low and his belly is so fat. The sacrificed children were used by Liang Chinsu to use parasites to create the current giants. It was obvious that the experiment was not stable, so a very small number of children died during the experiment. Its poor brain capacity didn't even think about why it fell just now. Just as it was trying to find the reason, its attention was attracted by the broken wings rushing over, so Dabai repeated his old trick. That time he bit off half of the giant's left leg. Foot. Like Ashley, I observed the cut surfaces of these wounds out of curiosity. They were very rough and small, and even the bones were cut open chaotically by Liang Cheng. 8 shots went up, and the giant looked shaky again and knelt on the ground. The one making the huge noise was a giant nearly 8 meters tall. The giant's appetite is huge. It needs a small amount of meat when it is 8 months old. Its growth rate is slow. After 4 months, it has not reached 1.5 floors. Wei Ang was on guard for 7 weeks and said, "It's Guo Zanyi, and his knife must be too sharp." Broken wing. I haven't faced an opponent in a long time. The giant's body fell to the left, and outside its narrowed eyes, a fist with broken wings appeared close at hand. Its huge body bent its spine, and its body was covered with thick armor. It held a huge stone hammer in its hand. There were a lot of snacks and chocolates outside the folding wing backpack, but the stock was low. I was still unclear about how long I would stay there, so I decided to save the snacks for the first time. Then the giant swept towards Broken Wing with a stone hammer in one hand. "You are not the same as Wei Ang. You feel that Dabai's screams are to express his grievances. Are you still going to act like you did just now? Although there are no enemies coming now, you don't think there are any enemies behind." After that, Dabai didn't bark again, but we only understood it now. Maybe it was because the eggs hadn't hatched yet? And now, because the communication ability of the parasites is not similar to the perception and induction ability of Dabai, we heard the general meaning, but could we decode the specific words? Now the Luoguang butterfly in my hand can still cause enough damage to the giant, but I want to waste ammunition, So the next goal is not to find the location of the parasite in the enemy's body. I must only give me one knife, but I dare to fight with so few villagers in close combat. But the problem is that the productivity of the village can support a giant who can eat a cow for 8 days and still be full. When the giant saw the food Ji rushing towards him, he couldn't help but smile foolishly, drooling, and raised the stone hammer, ready to smash Liang Cheng. Of course, it is not possible that Dabai's barking is superb and can't express emotions, but Ji's idea is a wrong research direction. The giant stopped moving, and just as he was about to fall, he took a step back with his right foot, stopping his momentum. That giant was not a secret weapon outside the village, and even the Sadler cultist used a large section in my dark canon to implicitly mention the secret weapon. So, before the villagers sought help from the castle, the giant fell into a deep sleep until we arrived. When Ji was thinking about the problem, his face did not change a little, so we did not continue this topic. Liang Chen was not determined, and directly took out the Luoguang butterfly, but that weapon did not have enough penetration to deal with the giant. Yeah, Ashley replied without hesitation. But those words were said, and Ashley felt nauseous again, and then vomited under Ji. Ha, so slow. Liang Chen did not relax at all when facing the enemy he saw for the first time, and directly avoided the enemy's fatal blow. And that time Liang Chen immediately moved away from the giant to prevent the opponent from attacking him again. I suddenly talked about those things to gather Ashley's attention and to create a good atmosphere. It's the same old saying, you get used to it after saying it for a while. However, Liang Chen fired back during the ascent and descent, and the target was still the head of the giant. Zhe also considered that point, so he didn't propose to use the number of calls as a secret signal. If this kid is in trouble and needs help, how can you receive the signal? The wound on the head was blocked by the mask and helmet, so Liang Chen didn't see the situation of the gunshot wound, but now I can't see from the wound on the giant's front ankle. The guy's recovery ability is very weak, and it is very unlikely that the brain can be repaired. Liang Chen tried to use the perception and sensing ability on people who were infected with the T. Veronica virus, but it didn't work at all. It was because the other party had the signal receiver of the T. Veronica virus in his body. After sorting out the equipment under him, he reloaded the Luoguang butterfly with bullets, and Ji went ahead alone. Before he dealt with the villagers who were alone on the road one by one, he came to an iron gate. In front of the iron gate, there was a sound of Tong Xiao, rumbling as if he was doing some small project. Meow tried BasedonaMovie, it seemed to have some effect on relieving back pain. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 256. Chapter 253 lines. The effect of this punch was like a cannonball hitting the giant's face. Luoguang lifted the giant's head. Then he didn't wait for the giant to react, and kicked the giant away with a whip kick. With Luoguang's reminder, Xiaobai dodged the flying giant by lying down, then walked to Luoguang's side and looked back to observe the giant's situation. The giant fell to the ground with a loud bang, and then his body immediately had unusual rapid twitches. Luoguang took the opportunity to reload the bullet, staring at the giant who had a strange reaction. The giant's body was not small, and the fat in front and back was very thick, so Luoguang didn't kick the giant in half. He was now thinking about whether he could force out the parasites in its body directly, just like those villagers who were shot in the head. But this giant didn't play by the rules. After twitching for a while, Luoguang saw that the giant's head actually grew back. It's just that the eyes that were originally silly now have no life, which is very similar to the eyes of those T-virus zombies. Has the consciousness of this giant disappeared, considering that there is no brain inside? Luoguang guessed in his heart. Hearing Ashley's words, Wyan was not moved at all, and said, I know the situation of Shenxia, and my intercom was given to the Minotaur again, is it that you go directly? There should be problems if you are not careful. Wyan smiled and replied, "Something is wrong, Ada, I am weaker than you. In Raccoon City, you didn't try your best to survive alone, and you escaped with 2 other survivors with great difficulties. But at this time, Ada was not able to lead 1 or 4 survivors to escape from Raccoon City. Does the parasite have consciousness and memory preservation and recovery ability? Does this system have it?" 7th floor Shenjiawa answered casually. Zhang Xiao's mouth seemed to want to swallow Shenjia whole, but how could Ada do as it wished? As for Luo Guang's question, the Minotaur replied, "It's said to be a place to hide things, but it's not so vague. You go with him." Louis focused all his attention on Luo Guang's body, and didn't notice the Minotaur hiding by the door. After 8 palm strikes, the parasites in the giant's body were killed. The giant turned his head and found Luo Guang's figure. Then he launched an attack, a little slower than before. Woof woof, Dabai rushed towards Shenjia with excitement, and was successfully caught by Ada. After thinking for a while, Luo Guang replied, "Okay. Be careful of danger." The giant felt pain, but didn't wail. He rolled forward, trying to stay away from Shenjia's fist and crush the bastard who attacked from behind. Then he chased in the direction of the Minotaur. Similar to the later, it was packed in an iron box, so it didn't attract Ashley's attention. And the bullets of the broken-winged angel had weak penetration, so it caused little damage to the parasites. Ada followed closely, changed her position, and stopped hammering the enemy's chest. Unintentionally being given a bad guy card, Wyan smiled bitterly and said, "How can you compare to me?" Wyan looked at the place where Ashley stretched out her finger. There was indeed a handle that could not be held and rotated, and the overall color was different from the stone. Wyan turned on the flashlight and looked inside the secret passage. There was no similar handle outside, which was probably the switch of the secret passage door. That made Wyan admire and even worship Ada. That was when Ashley rotated and pulled out a little, and I really found that. On the other side, Ada, who was burning the parasite corpse, did not wait for Wyan and us, but waited for Dabai's emergency report. Wyan and we met. So I think, no matter who these Avengers are, if they have nothing to do with the Salazar family. Luo Guang knew that it was the excuse of the Minotaur, worried that he would abandon me before getting the amber. Luo Guang looked inside the house and saw Shenjiawa checking the door. But at this time, there was not much moss under the wall, so I didn't check it carefully. I vaguely saw the mark of the Salazar family emblem. This plan was thought of by the Minotaur before he knew that the hidden room was dug a tunnel by someone. This discovery was of no use to Ada in dealing with the enemy, but Ada learned from it that cerebellum reconstruction might lose consciousness and become a fool. Woof. Luo Guang spit out a mouthful of blood, and then he gave himself a sedative injection produced by the HCF organization. The parasite has a shell-like armor on its body. Ada has not tried the quality of this armor, but it may have armor inside its body. The giant seized the opportunity to grab Ada with his hands, but Ada, who was quick-eyed and slow-legged, kicked his hand off. Shenjia didn't have time to think about the truth of the Minotaur's words, and Louis hadn't chased him to the room on the 7th floor. Now I am doing the rescue mission, but I feel like I am not redundant. Ada can handle that mission alone, even if Ada has no other missions to do. If Luo Guang hadn't had the habit of letting the system record data, he might not have discovered that the time from the giant discovering him to launching an attack was 0.02 seconds slower than before. The two of us didn't spend much time together, but when we were in Raccoon City, the 2 things Shenjia gave me and the words I made the chief of the police station give me and Claire a lot of help. That looks like the family emblem of the Salazar family. Why is it painted there? Wyan found that the family emblem was not painted on the wall, but in the corner. And the emergency injection is 1 shot at a time, and it must be used as soon as possible before opening, otherwise it can be preserved for too long. Ada, am I okay? Ashley said as soon as she relaxed a little. But when you and Ada were waiting for the rain to stop in the meeting place, in order to make the atmosphere so awkward, you asked Ada about Wyan when you were looking for a topic, Wyan, but Ada said he is also very weak, and a very bad person. Before leaving Raccoon City, I learned about Ada from Claire, Kersey, and others for the first time. The two worked together before, and they didn't communicate much with each other. Therefore, Luo Guang didn't want to make trouble, so he told the Minotaur about it. The internal organs of the parasite flowed all over the ground, and it was pulled twice before it came to life. That sounds like what I said, and I was right. I didn't tell him the details of helping Luo Guang get the virus, and Ashley was considerate and asked a lot of questions. Suddenly, I heard a gunshot from the house. I came to the open window and saw Shen Jiahua running away, with 2 or 8 special villagers chasing him. But when Shen Jia bypassed Louis and led the enemy back into the house, and came to the 7th floor, I found that the Minotaur was still nowhere to be seen. Seeing the other party's expression, Luo Guang always felt that the Minotaur was trying to play some conspiracy again, so he kept a secret. Anyway, we were all waiting, so Wyan found a place without a long wooden bench to rest. The treatment effect is worse than the slow relief spray. If there is a disadvantage, it is not akin of slow relief spray that cannot be used less than once, and the shelf life is also long. The two sides wrestled and gave in to each other. Ada helped and pulled the parasite out of the giant in one breath. Exploding from the back of the giant, the several-meter-long parasite waved its body, and with a sweep, it knocked the white that rushed over to it away. Ashley was also a flexible person, and nodded directly. This was not something he was good at. In fact, Amber was hidden on the 1st floor of the wooden house, just outside this hidden room. The white that was knocked away rushed to the parasite that was shrinking back, bit the front of the parasite's mouth parts, and then pulled it forward with force. White obeyed the order, wagging its tail, and ran to find Wyan, and waited for Ada to open the iron gate for it. It jumped over the 2.5 meter low iron gate. Just as Ashley was satisfied with her discovery, she knew what mechanism she had touched. A rumbling sound rang out, and the secret passage was opened. Ada felt that there was no small problem with White, so she didn't stop her action. Which floor is the hidden thing? Ashley saw that Wyan was suspicious of you, and hurriedly said, "That's true." I also said that he just didn't see himself clearly now, and he was still confused, so he didn't show his true strength. After exhaling, Ada loaded the bullets in her weapon and put it away. The parasite bypassed the giant's body and attacked Shenjio with its mouthparts full of teeth and huge upper palate. Faced with that situation, the first reaction of the parasite was not to shrink back outside the giant's body and repair its injuries. The giant's mouth corners were drooling, and his originally smooth movements became a little clever. So when I heard that Ada recognized my ability, I was a little disappointed. You have never fought with Shen Jiahua before, and you thought it was just a special villager wearing a hood. The emergency injection has similar functions to the emergency spray produced by Umbrella, but the latter focuses more on internal injuries and can also increase the recovery speed of internal injuries. I can't tell you myself, because the subordinates value me, so they will cross the river and burn the bridge, but the Minotaur looks like this kind of guy who loves freedom. However, Shenjia tried his best but failed to catch up with the Minotaur, and even lost the trace of the Minotaur, so you can't help but curse him as a bastard. Seeing that Wyan suddenly showed a little sadness, Ashley also found a topic for a while, and the two chatted all the way down. Dabai threw the parasite back, and Ada raised her gun and pulled the trigger almost at the same time, shooting all the remaining bullets into the mouth of the parasite. The parasite that fell to the ground twisted its beautiful body, waved its limbs under it, and tried to struggle to death, but Dabai didn't give it a chance, rushing down and biting off the whole parasite with a puppy head. The story goes back to before Ada left. He found a chance to get this thing, Shenjia shouted to Shenjiahua. The system gave an unknown answer, and its manual did not mention any relevant information. After venting, Dabai also swept away the haze and turned back to his hateful appearance. I dodged the attack and shot a bullet at the mutant's mouth. I was sure to say it myself, and the other party wanted to accept the job prepared by Wesker for me. How should I solve it? In order to keep quiet, Shenjia immediately took action and pulled out the short knife under his calf, and was about to cut Shenjia's throat with the knife, stopping his cry outside his throat. You plan to lead Lewis back to the house, so that the Minotaur is forced to fight the enemy together with you. With Luo Guang's flexible movement, the two avoided several waves of enemies and finally came to the wooden house. The Minotaur nodded, and then followed Luo Guang, who had set out first. There are no villagers patrolling, what should we do? The Tauren looked worried and continued, and there are no villagers outside this house. Could it be that we found Amber hidden outside? But did you also save 2 people? Do you think life is more valuable than less? That reminded me that Diego and I also left through the secret passage in the wall when I left the factory area. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Dabai on the other side also disliked the smell of meat and started to bite it from the feet to the end. Wei Ang groped the wall carelessly again and found that the front of the wall seemed to be hollow. Seeing Luo Guang appear outside the window, I even shouted, "You will meet at the castle." "What is that?" The two chatted for a while, and Ashley suddenly pointed to a symbol under the wall. Ada didn't stop him, Bimax told himself, it was coming to pull out the enemy. Anyway, Ada felt that she had to be more careful about protecting her head. The two of them set out together as soon as possible, but they didn't expect that after walking for a while, the village chief fell from the sky and blocked the way. The giant's attack method was different from what it was later. Ada was unfamiliar with how nervous she was to deal with it before. Cooperating with Dabai to knock the giant down, Ada rushed down and beat the giant's belly. That mission was also a road to redemption for Wei Ang. I wanted to do such a dark mission again. "Are you leaving?" Ashley asked. "Before I came out of the tunnel, I actually left the house quietly, but I wanted to lose Luo Guang's escape ticket, so I opened fire to attract the villagers, pretending that I was forced to leave first." "Dabai, go ask Wei Ang and let us come over." "Do the Tauren have such a thing?" Before observing, I felt that the number of them was not that small. I had never communicated with Ada about the Raccoon City incident. I knew that Ada had not successfully escaped from Raccoon City before taking a helicopter from the police station, but had gone through a difficult ordeal like myself. Ashley put her hands behind her chest. "It looked like you were also startled," and said, "You are also vague. Didn't you just try to twist it when you saw a device that looked bad and couldn't be twisted?" In order to make it easier for Dabai to find him, Wei Ang would naturally run around on his own initiative. I had no choice but to do so. Ouch. Actually, you, the other survivor, were the main force in rescuing this older child survivor. You only helped a little, but you did something wrong because of your innocence. While Ada was waiting for Wei Ang, the Tauren took Luo Guang back to the wooden house where the amber was hidden. "Lewis' attack almost killed you, but within a few seconds after receiving the life-saving injection, you recovered from your injuries and finished fighting back." Wei Ang finally regained some energy and thought that his troubles were indeed hidden from Ada. "Where is Amber hidden outside the wooden house?" "There are only a few people outside. If you are more cautious, retreat outside." Luo Guang hid in front of the bunker, holding a telescope to confirm the situation. Lewis tilted his neck. The short knife did not hit his cervical spine. Instead, I made a fist with my left hand and hit Luo Guang's body, knocking Luo Guang away. Shenjiawa didn't answer, just nodded and made a mouth gesture wishing him bad luck. "Ashley, did he use some mechanism?" Wei Ang, who raised his gun to guard the secret passage, did it himself, and someone came out of the secret passage, so I asked Ashley about it. Small eyes on both sides widened. and before you fired a shot to slightly hinder Lewis' retreat, you jumped out of the window, spun 360 degrees in the air, and landed successfully. I hope to do this kind of rescue mission, it must be for Shirley. I have already gone to find a job in the Red Claw Army or the GIMZ Army. The purpose is to allow the giant to spend a small amount of energy repairing itself. Meow meow meow, thank you for subscribing and voting. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tongmiao. Chapter 257. Chapter 251 Village Chief. Go. Leon had never fought the village chief before, and now his reaction to seeing this enemy was to move away immediately. The village chief, who landed in the same posture as Iron Man, slowly stood up, looking neither slow nor slow, and chased in the direction where Leon and the other two escaped. This way. Leon originally wanted to bypass the enemy and find Luo Guang, and then the two of them worked together to solve the enemy, but the village chief obviously did not intend to give them a chance, so he made up his mind and took Ashley into the secret passage, and then closed the secret passage door. The two entered the secret passage in front of the village chief, and the village chief was not blind. He clenched his fists and hit the stone wall with one blow, causing the entire secret passage to vibrate. Leon turned on the flashlight and immediately took Ashley to the depths, praying that this was not a dead end. These secret passages built by the Avengers naturally could not be dead ends. Using the same method to open the secret passage door, Leon successfully left the secret passage with Ashley. He didn't know whether the village chief had smashed the stone wall and chased him through the secret passage, so he immediately asked Ashley to help find the switch and planned to close the secret passage door. I don't know if Ashley is more talented in this matter, and she also found the switch. Well done, Leon praised, and after watching the secret passage door close, he took Ashley away. Luo Guang came there for a thing called amber. Although we know what it is, it should not help the organization. You plan to catch it all at once. At the beginning, it was not that I made a lot of noise when I walked. After all, in addition to pheromones, there were also shoe prints left on the ground. Ashley was my first mission target, so the village chief immediately turned around and was about to jump down to catch Ashley. The village chief saw that scene, but I was parasitized by the parasite and I didn't feel angry. The two continued to run backwards. Wei Ang was thinking about how to deal with the retreat of the village chief in front of him, and suddenly saw that a wooden bridge behind him was directly collapsed by these villagers. The village chief did not charge, one hand protected his head, ignored Wei Ang's pistol bullets, and picked up the hat on the ground with the other hand and put it back on his head. Following the tracking pheromones remaining in the air, Ada came to a stone wall and saw the holes hammered by the enemy below, but did not see any traces of the enemy. From childhood to adulthood, there has never been a day when your exercise volume is not as small as today. Although you don't usually participate in various activities in class, these exercises are nothing compared to now. The upper part of the waist is still the legs of the face, but the waist and abdomen have disappeared directly, replaced by thick segments of the spine, like a centipede, and each segment has a pair of feet on the right and left. You are stuck, Ashley immediately explained the situation. The two finally ran to the other side after the bridge collapsed, but before we could relax, a villager who was shot in the head bent down and carried Ashley, and then walked to the main road on the side. Although the leather jacket under the village chief is very similar to the Tyrant's 8 defense jacket, it is essentially just a special piece of clothing. I don't have those tracking skills and knowledge, but after I come, I can restore a general situation. A huge hand grabbed Ashley's arm, and Wyan didn't hesitate at all. Seeing that situation, he immediately drew his knife and stabbed the arm. There was no sound of the village chief chasing in front of me, and Wyan, who was just thinking about it, heard Ashley's cry. Fortunately, the enemy knocked a hole, and Xiao Hua smelled the pheromone outside, confirming where we were going. Wyan threw away the empty magazine and replaced it with a new one, but I didn't continue to shoot, but knocked the red oil barrel next to me to the ground. The oil barrel itself was full of oil, and it was also an original oil barrel, so there was no air outside except for the gasoline. The spark ignited the oil barrel, and the explosion and flames directly enveloped me, the village chief. However, none of us heard what I said, because we ran away directly. Slow down, I could only urge him. I changed a new magazine, and the village chief had not appeared in my sight, but there were no villagers behind me, and the road was relatively wide, so I didn't run. I had no choice. It was difficult to dismantle the wooden wall of the warehouse with my bare hands, so I held the pistol and pushed the door carefully to retreat to the 7th floor of the warehouse. Then Xiao Huaying walked back to his chair, took out his mobile phone and sent a message. The gunshot attracted the attention of the village chief and Ashley at the same time. Lord, thank him for his gift. In the small fire, village chief Mendez stood up, but his body had not changed. As for their current position, you can see that he is walking along the road. If Vulture 7 also takes the road to the north, there will be a meeting point. Simmons sent the route map to Wyan before. All these show that Wyan wanted to find us, but was stopped by the owner of the small shoe print. Aida joined temporarily, resulting in an additional set of communication equipment with the Eagle's Nest. The kind of thing involving the Lighthouse country is a confidential technology, and the base of the Spanish X organization is also the same. And this figure also came to the 1st floor, and it was the village chief who had been chasing us. The enemy behind me had obvious strong points that I saw when I faced the tyrant mutant later, so my first goal was not to break the opponent's spine. Wyan did not give a wrong answer, and said in a deep voice, "You will do your best. Let me take you." Wayang stabbed the enemy's neck with a knife, making the enemy incapable of action. This chapter is not over yet, please click the next page to continue reading. The light touch told Wayang that the oil barrel was empty, so I kicked the oil barrel towards the village chief. Got it. Although Simmons was very confused, he still told Wayang the situation and moved the satellite monitoring to Wayang. Over there, Wayang looked around and listened to all directions. He immediately found that there was no way to go on the right side, and there was another wooden bridge that had not been destroyed. You guys continue to retreat. Wayang walked back and said to Ashley, who was following him, "This guy's target should not be him. He will definitely meet me again. He doesn't care about me, just stay away from me." I left tracking pheromones under us in Wayang. It is more convenient to find us through that route, and it will also lead to a way to meet up due to various reasons. Thinking about where to go through the warehouse, the wooden wall beside Wyan was directly knocked open, and a figure hit Wyan under him, knocking Wyan to the 1st floor and rolling several times. But Wyan endured the severe pain, raised his pistol and shot in front of the village chief. Eagle Lord Simmons wanted to stand up and salute, but was held down by Hannigan. Wyan took out his gun and pointed it at the village chief 8 times, then took advantage of the enemy's hand raised to defend and moved forward, pulling Ashley to run. Hannigan is now basically on standby at 77 o'clock, and immediately replied, "Vulture number 7 is in an open place." From the image, it seems that a huge monster has just been solved. "The weight loss effect must be very bad," Ashley said with her hands on her knees, panting. "Be careful." Ashley took the opportunity to break free and moved a little away from the village chief. The two talked and slowly came to the distance of a warehouse. Xiao Huaying is the current head of the X organization. Ada said that, "What else can I say?" I just casually replied and let Xiao Hua continue to perform the mission, and then told Ada about Wyan. "What about him?" Ashley asked, looking at Wyan's back. "Hasta luego, goodbye." Wyan's Spanish words were accompanied by less than 8 9mm pistol bullets. "Village chief, I still looked fast or slow, his soul needs to be purified. Come on, kid. Ah. As a result, when I walked to the 7/8 position, Ashley's foot was directly stuck outside the gap of the wooden bridge. There are no traces of enemies outside, but Ada, I think the enemy will give up easily, so I have to work harder to rush on. It's getting uglier and uglier. Wyan said that because he was sure of victory, and I was trying to adjust my fighting mentality as much as possible to ensure that I would not make mistakes because of being too relaxed. Hannigan nodded. It seems that Xiao Huaying understood what I meant. That hat was a gift from the next village chief. I was less familiar with the village than these Avengers. Based on the villagers' report of Wyan's location, I successfully took a shortcut and nervously chased Wyan and the other two. Slow down, you cover him. Wyan stood in the middle and fired to block the enemies on both sides. At first, I glared at Wyan and turned away. Almighty God! Give you the power to crush your enemies. And when the village chief kicked the oil barrel back, Wyan had not found the best time to fire and detonate the oil barrel. Wyan and Ashley had not walked a long way. Although there were no villagers blocking the way, I nervously solved them all. At that time, because the secret passage was not low, and the village chief was short and strong, retreating would only make it difficult for him to move, so the village chief chose to find another way for me. Although they had left the village chief for a distance, they had lost their position, so Leon needed to confirm their current position so that they could meet up with Luo Guang later. Eagle's Nest. We were chased by the enemy and separated from Vulture number 7. Please tell me your current position. Ashley saw Wyan's gaze at her and what he said afterwards, and immediately ran to another exit on the 7th floor. The warehouse was large, and the whole road was blocked by the broken door. You need to take the stairs to the 7th floor of the warehouse to go around. It looked like a secret passage, and Ada found the switch very slowly. Because Ashley's men had applied a little pheromone, Ashley stuck the pheromone under the switch when she turned it on. The two sides were about 20 meters apart, and the village chief did not try to jump over, because it would not be a bottomless abyss if he fell on it. After calling out to Wyan, Ashley ran directly. The footprints are small and deep. Ada stopped searching before meeting Dabai. After coming here, the village chief had not confirmed with the leader. Wyan, I am not a necessary talent for the dark cult. Since the other party is still obsessed with enlightenment, I will sacrifice him to my master. It's broken. Ashley stood up. The nails on both hands became slender and sharp, and two pairs of long and short tentacles grew on the back. The shape and structure are similar to the hands and feet of crabs. They are segmented, without spikes at the end, and cannot be retracted. They look very flexible. After collecting the broken mobile phone, Ada immediately took action. A villager was knocked down by Wyan under the bridge, causing the wooden bridge, which was originally very stable, to shake. Thank you. Before Ashley landed, Wyan immediately went to get back the dagger and finish off the villager. They have a way to escape. The village chief threw a sentence before he slowly chased after them, and at the same time commanded the villagers behind to surround Wyan and Ashley through the parasite communication network. You can't contact Vulture 7 now, Wyan said. The problem, so you have to reach the intersection slower than Vulture 7, and he will help you track the situation of Vulture 7. The village chief was able to appear in front of Wyan and us quietly, not because I don't have any invisibility skills, but I used the fact that Ashley, Wyan, had no parasites in her body to slightly shield my existence, so that Wyan and us ignored the situation in front of us. Wyan, Ashley walked to the railing and shouted Wyan's name, which also attracted the attention of the village chief. The first clue was not the new shoe prints, but around there. Ada had not smelled the pheromones under Wyan and us, but it was not far from the place where we parted. Why did he follow Xiao Hua and take you up? Weiang was the first to take the lead, and he didn't have time to turn around and taunt the village chief. I fired 2 more shots, interrupting the enemy who was charging with a dung fork. While the enemy was stiff, I swept down with a low kick, sweeping the 2 enemies to the ground, and then took Ashley to pass the 2 enemies. Wei Ang laughed, which was also a relief from the relief in my heart. When the village chief glared at me just now, I was very relaxed, worried that the village chief would jump over and beat people. The villagers fell back, and Wei Ang directly let go of the fighting dagger, hugged Ashley's big waist with both hands, and hugged her. The warehouse was very quiet, filled with various sundries, and Wei Ang also saw several oil drums that might be filled with fuel. The village chief seemed to be very disdainful of Wei Ang's attack, retracted his left hand, and then swept his fist towards Wei Ang. Xiao Huaying, who had been paying attention to Simon's situation, walked to the other side and put one hand under Xiao Huaying's shoulder naturally. I don't want Xiao Hua to be photographed kidnapping Luo Guang or affecting Ada's task. Huayan took advantage of the village chief's withdrawal to pull out the dagger, then bent forward to avoid the village chief's swinging punch, and then quickly moved away from the village chief with Ashley. Seeing Ashley leave, the panting Huayan felt a little relieved and fought on his own. Got it, Ada replied, but I didn't go all the way north to this intersection, but returned the same way. Hannigan looked at the information displayed on the screen and said, "You will contact Vulture 7. Not yet, your support target is Vulture 1, don't always stare at Vulture 7. Yes, I wanted to shoot directly in the head, but my breathing was not yet straightened, and in order to attract the attention of the village chief as soon as possible, I was pragmatic and aimed at the torso." Seeing the village chief walking towards him while talking, Huayan also stood up to avoid the enemy's previous attack, while firing his gun, saying, "His preaching level is too poor." At the same time, I turned back and fired several more shots at the villagers who chased down, and took Ashley down the wooden bridge. Give up the meaningless resistance and dedicate his body to your god. That first advice was not the first facial expression of the village chief. Meow, I found a good zombie comic, but I don't plan to let the protagonist participate in that book. After all, I'm not Wesker, who is already a boss and still runs out to fight every day. I just don't know if everyone can accept this. Meow. Evolution begins with Resident Evil. Author, Wei Tong. Meow. Chapter 258. After the fire, half of the warehouse was on fire. The second floor where Leon and his team had walked before was full of flames, and the first floor door of the warehouse was also on fire below that position. He and the village chief were already in a state of trapped beasts fighting. The temperature in the room was rising rapidly, and Leon's forehead began to sweat, and the village chief was also not so comfortable. The parasites themselves were afraid of fire. The first head of the Salazar family successfully sealed the parasites with fire. There was no more nonsense on both sides. Leon opened fire at the village chief's waist. Because the lumbar vertebrae were replaced by joints, the village chief's waist was stretched very long, and the joint tentacles behind him were not convenient to protect, but because of the protection of the bone shell, Leon could not break his lumbar vertebrae for a while. So the village chief ignored Leon's attack and used the tentacles behind him to attack Leon, one poking forward and the other slashing from top to bottom. Leon rolled over to avoid a poke, then used his left leg to leap to the left again to avoid the enemy's slash, and then immediately stood up to fight back. The village chief was a little overwhelmed by the multiple bullets in his waist, and he could not help but step back a few steps, while activating the ability of the parasite to repair and thicken the bone armor on his waist. Leon took the opportunity to put away his pistol, took out the Springfield rifle on his back, and shot the village chief in the waist. The front armor on the enemy's limb slightly blocked the bullet, but the bullet failed to penetrate the armor behind it in the end, and rolled directly in his body, causing great damage. The village chief's previous thickening of the bone armor caused him to suffer a great loss. He wanted to attack Leon with pain to prevent Leon from continuing to shoot, but the parasite in his body didn't think so. Survival is the first instinct of the parasite, and village chief Mendez naturally couldn't resist it. He followed the plan of the parasite, retreating first and then using tentacles to attack. It worked. Leon saw the reaction of the village chief after being shot, and knew that he had hit the enemy's stiffness, so he immediately pulled the bolt and fired another shot. The village chief was shot again, and almost at the same time, his two tentacles swept towards Leon to fight back. The two tentacles were up and down, and rolling and jumping seemed difficult to deal with. As for jumping into the middle of the two tentacles, Leon would not take such a risk, so he threw the gun behind him, raised his hands high, and jumped with his legs. With his hands climbing on the edge of the second floor, Leon used his arms and waist to exert force at the same time, and swung his legs to flip directly up, avoiding the enemy's attack at the critical moment. You can't avoid God's punishment. For the village chief with a pair of long tentacles, he didn't need to chase him to attack Leon, but Leon already had some ideas on how to avoid the village chief's attack. The village chief was probably not familiar with this form. Every time the two tentacles launched an attack, his hands would unconsciously swing in the same trajectory, which did not achieve the effect of a hidden surprise attack. The enemy's attack speed was not slow, but by observing the village chief's own movements, Leon could quickly predict the opponent's next attack, allowing him to react in advance and successfully avoid the attack. Bang! Another shot, almost at the same position, the bullet rolled around the village chief's waist again. This time, the village chief's old waist finally couldn't bear the damage and broke. The lower body fell to the ground with a snap, and the village chief also lay on the ground. The village chief, who seemed invincible before, now looked a little embarrassed. And Leon looked at the fallen village chief and finally found the enemy's weakness. There was a huge eye under the village chief's neck. Although there was no agility in the eye, it was lifeless, but Leon's intuition told him that it was the village chief's weakness. The Springfield rifle had a barely acceptable shooting speed when he was skilled. Leon aimed and shot, wanting to solve the enemy in one go. But the village chief had recovered quickly. The pair of shorter arthropod tentacles behind him suddenly grew and pierced into the broken lower body, instantly absorbing the nutrients of the lower limbs and making the two short ones longer. Because of this action, the village chief's body shifted to one side, and the weakness behind him avoided the fatal blow, piercing the village chief's left lung, which was now useless. Tisk Lion's Springfield rifle still had 2 bullets left before it needed to be reloaded. Although there were still about 40 rounds of bulk bullets, Leon didn't want to drag it on. The fire was getting bigger and bigger, and there were some oil drums that might contain fuel here, which could explode again at any time. Compared with the village chief, Leon was just a mortal, and his survival rate was much lower than that of the village chief. The tentacles behind the village chief were like a 4-legged spider, supporting the village chief, and the whole person was in mid-air. He only heard him roar, and the village chief jumped upwards. When flying in the air, he used 2 tentacles to accurately hook the hanging beam. After a quick turn, he changed the direction of flight and rushed towards Leon, trying to stab him with the remaining 2 tentacles. Leon didn't think much, relying on instinct to jump down directly, and turned around after rolling twice, trying to take this opportunity to attack the village chief who had his back to him. But when he looked back at the village chief had already started a new round of attacks, which left Leon no chance to aim, and he could only hide to one side in embarrassment. This time he didn't evade by flying or rolling, because that would only make him lose the opportunity to counter-attack in time. Another shot was fired at the village chief's arthropod tentacle, which was easily dodged by the village chief lifting the tentacle, but Leon's target was not the moving tentacle, but the other one on the same side. The power of rifle bullets is not comparable to that of pistol bullets, and the arthropod tentacle was directly shot off. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. One of the village chief's tentacles floated in the air, and it was on the same side, so he lost his balance directly. The village chief in mid-air fell to one side so as not to fall to the ground, but his first reaction was to regain his balance instead of attacking Leon. Therefore, Leon won another chance to attack, and there was one last bullet in his Springfield rifle. Go to hell, monster! With the roar of Leon's gunshot, the village chief's chest was shot, including the huge eyeball behind him. This time, the village chief did not say the previous weird words, the severe pain was stimulating his nerves, and the parasite shot in his body was the same. Since parasitizing the village chief Mendez, this was the first time it felt the threat of life. 4. Should be 3 tentacles were waving around, just like other animals struggling to death after being seriously injured. But the tentacles swung without regularity, making it difficult for Leon, who was very close to the village chief, to avoid them. One of the tentacles hit Leon's abdomen and sent him flying. Damn! Leon felt as if his intestines were twisted into a ball, and the pain rushed straight to his brain. Leon was lucky. The tentacles hit him in the middle part. Although there were some spikes there were no bone blades, so he was not disemboweled. Looking at the village chief who was swinging his tentacles violently not far away, Leon endured the severe pain and replaced the bullets in his rifle, and then sent bullets into the village chief's body one by one until the village chief stopped moving and there were several more holes in his head. Relieved, Leon looked around. Most of the warehouse was on fire. The main door of the warehouse was already on fire. The 2 exits on the second floor had long been burned black. Only this warehouse was not very sealed, so he did not inhale any thick smoke. There was no fire around a window, but if the window was opened rashly, the fresh air that suddenly came in might cause backfire. Do you want to take a gamble? Leon was still thinking about the pros and cons, but the situation in the warehouse didn't seem to allow him to think too much. The burning wooden board that fell from the ceiling hit the body of the village chief and set it on fire. Just as Leon made up his mind, he suddenly saw a chair thrown in from the window, and then a fireball appeared and sprayed out of the window. There were holes and collapses in the walls and ceilings, causing the outside air to flow in, so the backfire did not become too big. Leon, are you in there? Ashley's voice passed through the crackling flames and reached Leon's ears. Leon saw her carefully looking out the window to check the situation inside. Get out of the way! Leon shouted, ran to the window, jumped up, and jumped out just before the collapse. Ashley immediately ran to Leon and extinguished the sparks on his body. Are you okay? No. Leon stood up. Now he could finally breathe a sigh of relief, but as the adrenaline subsided, Leon felt even more uncomfortable, especially because the village chief whipped him in the stomach. He lifted his clothes and took a look. There was a black mark there, and there were several blood holes oozing blood. Ah! Ashley also saw this and asked hurriedly, how to deal with this? Is there anything I can help with? Seeing Ashley trying to take off the scarf around her neck, Leon stopped Ashley and took out the first aid spray and bandage from his backpack. It's just right. The previous wound on my back should have healed. Just cut off the old bandage, he said, cutting, but in fact Leon directly cut off the previous bandage with a combat dagger. Ashley saw Leon treating the wound skillfully, and knew that he didn't need to help, and his expression couldn't help but feel a little lonely. Ashley's expression had appeared on his face before, so Leon understood what she was thinking and said very considerately, thank you. If you hadn't broken the window, I might have to fight for my life to get out, and the wound might be more serious than it is now. You're welcome. After Leon said this, Ashley smiled. When Leon saw Ashley's smile, a scar in his heart seemed to be healed. It's true that he was still confused, but in the life and death struggle just now, he didn't have the leisure and time to think, and he devoted himself to it. After the fight, he found that he could have done better all the time. For example, the trap that injured his back, could he really not notice it? As long as Leon observed carefully, he could see that there was a bear trap on the slightly longer road, but there was nothing on the main road he took. He could have found this wrong point, but he was acting alone and thinking about the things he was confused about, and finally stepped into the enemy's trap. It was his fighting instinct that pulled him back from the hands of death. No wonder Luo Guang said that he was actually very strong. As for his confusion, after seeing Ashley's smile, he understood that he fought to protect people's smiles, which was enough, and he had been doing this since Raccoon City, such as Shirley's smile. As Ada said, he had not changed, but he thought he had changed. Leon clenched his fists and stood up. The pain in his abdomen came immediately, making him frown. This situation is not right. I may have internal bleeding. What's wrong, Leon? Ashley noticed that Leon's expression was not right. Leon forced a smile and said, "It's okay, let's keep going." Ashley nodded, followed Leon, and continued to head towards the castle. But Leon's internal condition was worse than he thought. If he had not undergone relevant abdominal impact training, he would have been lying down and unable to walk, instead of being able to endure the severe pain and continue to move forward in sweat. Ashley looked uncomfortable and was about to ask if she wanted to take a break, but she saw Leon's legs soften, kneeling on the ground, panting loudly. Leon. Leon felt more and more tired and wanted to respond to Ashley, but as soon as he opened his mouth, his eyes went black and he fell to the ground. What's wrong with Leon? Luo Guang just caught up with Leon and them and saw Leon fall to the ground. Luo Guang, Leon's stomach was injured. He has been treated, but it still doesn't work. I don't know why. He suddenly fell down while walking. Ashley was very nervous and her words were a little hard to understand. However, Luo Guang still extracted important information, that is, Leon's stomach was injured. So he turned Leon over and put him in the right position to prevent possible blood from flowing back and blocking his throat and causing suffocation. Then he checked the wound on Leon's stomach and realized that he was attacked by a strong whip. So he didn't hesitate and directly stuffed the AHM mixture given by Dr. Kara into Leon's mouth, then fed him some water and let Leon swallow the pill. Will Leon be okay? This is an experimental drug for treating internal injuries. To be honest, this is my first time using it. Luo Guang was not sure, but he was ready to insert the syringe with rebirth number 1 into Leon's buttocks at any time, so he was not particularly worried. Dr. Kara's research and development capabilities are still guaranteed, and he deserves the title of genius. After a few minutes, Leon coughed and vomited a lot of blood. Woof woof, Xiaobai reminded Luo Guang that the blood was the same as the blood Ashley coughed out, both with the smell of parasites. Luo Guang nodded to show that he understood. Ashley looked at Xiaobai, then looked at Luo Guang's expression, and asked, "Luo Guang, this medicine is effective, Leon will wake up soon." Luo Guang changed the subject. Prophet Luo Guang's words were quickly verified. In a few seconds, Leon woke up, but his head was still not around for a while, and he didn't say anything after seeing Luo Guang and the others. Luo Guang took this time to tell Leon what he had just done. "So that's how it is, thank you." Leon, who had recovered a little, smiled. He didn't expect that he would have to rely on Luo Guang to save his life in the end. "Well, wait for you to rest for a while, and we'll be on the road." Luo Guang nodded. He felt that Leon seemed to have changed a little, at least his expression was not as melancholy as before. Yeah, Leon sat on the side of the road to rest. Although his body didn't hurt anymore, it was better to be safe. However, he was not idle. He took out the tablet and contacted the Eagle's Nest. Looking at Lion's condition and the medicine in his hand, Luo Guang handed the bottle of AHM mixed medicine to Leon. "Take it first. If you still feel pain, take another one." "What about you?" Leon took the medicine bottle and asked. "Don't worry, I have other good things. Although this mission is more urgent, I have prepared all kinds of good things with me." Leon nodded in agreement. He just didn't bring enough things. If he had 7 or 8 grenades on him like in Raccoon City, he would not have had so much trouble fighting the monster just now. "By the way, Leon, since we are all resting, let's talk about that woman now." Taking advantage of now, Luo Guang planned to talk about this matter a little bit. Next, he felt that he was about to do his main task.